Michigan fans, I know you're not used to losing, but depending on which side of the scoreboard you were looking at, I think it was still a successful day. Welcome into the Voice of College Football, Michigan. I am flanked by John D'Adamo, host of our weekly show. It's Tuesday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern time, so hopefully you make that a staple of your week. And TJ Konerski from Ronin Sports Talk, of course, joining us on a regular basis. We appreciate TJ's contribution here, and we will see TJ on a regular basis as we have here in recent months. Guys, how we doing today?
Great.
Feeling good. Michigan did lose its first game today since a year ago, since the last spring game, due to the 15-0 season that they celebrated this morning with the ring ceremony. So whoever planned that was just on it. Okay, we're going to have the ring ceremony. We're going to fly. We're going to have everybody fly, and Harbaugh's going to be here, and then this game, and then Fox covered it all. So,
yeah, absolutely. And so before we get to the game, we might as well stop right there because there was much of that was shown during the course of the game and at halftime with Gus Johnson as the master of ceremonies. Jim Harbaugh came back. We saw all the great players from last year, J.J. McCarthy, Blake Corum, the headliners, and of course, heard from Chiron Moore there as well. And rings were presented. In the box of 4 that they showed at one point during one of the teases to break, I believe was a Big Ten championship ring, was a Rose Bowl championship, was the national championship. I thought there was a 4th ring there. I don't know what that would be.
So, Michigan ring.
Well, the 4th ring is supposed to be a playoff ring, but there's some controversy on the message boards because it's like, well, it says national champion on the playoff ring. So, but the insiders were told that the 4th ring's a playoff ring, even though it has national champion on it. I don't know. Maybe we'll get more detail in the next day or two.
So for going to the playoff.
Gotcha. Yeah, apparently it's from the college football committee.
There's a college football playoff ring.
Yep.
There's a Michigan ring. So Michigan created a ring. Then you have the Rose Bowl and the Big Ten championship. So 4 rings that everybody got from that team.
Comments and questions, welcome as always, folks, right here at the Voice of College Football. We will dive in on what we saw today. We appreciate the Super Chat contributions as well. We've got one coming in from Moose. We will get to that in just a second, but thank you so much for that, Moose. We might as well start, John, with the starting point for a lot of teams, but especially when you've got a quarterback battle. So Alex Orji comes out of the chute and he misfires on a couple throws that looked pretty ugly. And then after that, got into the rhythm, looked pretty darn good to me.
Yeah. I thought Alex Orji had a fairly solid effort today. I actually thought, given the fact that he only had maybe one series and then he had one where he was kind of splitting with Jaden Davis, they might have already named him the starter, because if that's all he's playing today, then that might be it. But then he played in the 4th quarter with Davis Warren on the other side. But obviously, one of the most impressive things he did was, of course, that 18-yard touchdown run. He then had another touchdown run late, which got called back because I guess somebody tackled him allegedly. I didn't see it though. Because the quarterbacks were on touch rules and everyone else was on tackle rules, if I understand it correctly, TJ.
Yeah, but to me, the defender he was still like 2 feet away and he was diving, so it wouldn't even have been a tackle or a touch. I don't know. It is what it is. It's spring game.
Yeah. He did well. He did fairly well. I think really he performed as I expected him to. Who didn't perform as I expected? Davis Warren didn't perform as I expected, because I thought Davis Warren was like 4th or 5th on the depth chart. Clearly, he's been rising in spring and impressing people, and he had a really great game today. So I might have to eat my words on Davis Warren with very impressive touchdowns. 42, 48 yards to Kendrick Bell. And Frederick Moore. So that's who impressed me a
And
lot.
TJ, Davis Warren's day began with beating the blitz off the corner. That might have been as impressive as a couple of the touchdown throws. He had somebody right in his face. He was able to backpedal and deliver a shot to the tight end down the field. So just, TJ, take us through the quarterback room and your impressions.
Yeah, I mean, incredibly impressed. I was on the portal bandwagon for a quarterback this spring, but I'm officially off the portal bandwagon and I'm on the Alex Orji, Davis Warren train to the college football playoffs in 2024. I think Davis Warren was extremely impressive, throwing under pressure, very accurate. Obviously, he's a pocket passer, so for Michigan to succeed with a Davis Ward-led offense would be the offensive line has to protect him. And there's rumors out of Ann Arbor that they're going to look for a right tackle to solidify the offensive line going forward. And then on the Alex Orji front, look, he's a one read and run it guy. He wasn't doing as much progression. He looked very accurate on short to intermediate throws. I mean, he did have a couple where it kind of flew over the wide receiver's head or was a little underthrown. And that's the issue with Alex Orji. But with his deficits, his feet make up for it, right? So we didn't get to see it to its full capacity today because obviously it's quarterbacks are no touch. But I think we're in for a hell of a QB battle all the way to game one.
Yeah, and then some weapons out of the backfield. Of course, Donovan Edwards was featured early, and he was certainly ripping up big yardage plays. Although I got to say, Ernest Hausman made a nice open field tackle on him. He also got tripped up going to the perimeter on what could have been a big gainer on the first or second drive of the game. But John, your thoughts about the weapons at running back and wide receiver?
Yeah. So I think that a couple of people, so of course we knew Donovan Edwards was not going to be in the game super, super long, but he had some great runs. And then we got to see obviously who was behind him. And, really from a wide receiver point of view, I'll focus there because I made some notes on this in particular. The other running backs behind Donovan, I think Dunlap had a couple of flashes there. But from a wide receiver point of view, that's where everybody's really wondering, right? Like, because that's been a position that that Michigan has been weaker at than some of the others, right? And that's been a consistent theme the last couple of seasons. So seeing Frederick Moore kind of break out, and apparently he's been breaking out in spring camp too, and with a 48-yard touchdown there, his ability to become almost like a deep guy, because you need somebody to take that Roman Wilson role, right? And who's that going to be? Is that going to be someone in-house, or are they going to have to go portal shopping? Frederick Moore might be the guy. I think we're going to have to see more. I think that fall camp is going to determine a lot too, but he's looking solid. And Kendrick Bell as a depth option too. So we know that Tyler Morris is going to be a starter, obviously, and Samaj Morgan I'm not even sure did he play at all today? I mean, he didn't play very much if he did at all. So I think they're the two for sure starters. And then Frederick Moore might be taking that other slot. So that's kind of my thoughts on those two positions anyway.
TJ?
Yeah, I thought Edwards looked explosive, and adding, so he's up to 215 now. Goal is to get down to 210 at the start of the season. But man, I was so impressed with Donovan Edwards. His vision looks right. He looks patient before he hits the hole. And his burst today was just impressive to me. He looks ready to carry the RB1 mantle and have another 1,000-yard season for Michigan. Behind him, Khalil Mullins and Ben Hall left a lot to be desired, in my opinion. I do think Khalil Mullins is RB2, and I do think he will be a very good RB2, but I just wanted to see more out of him. I didn't really see it. Ben Hall did not really get it going too much today. Cole Cabana was injured, which is why we didn't see him today, which is unfortunate. And we did not see Micah Capana, so that was interesting. In terms of the wide receiver situation, I'm not as optimistic in this area because I think we need an X wide receiver. I think Tyler Morris looks good. And Samaj Morgan did play, but he was nowhere to be found. He was in no man's land, right? So the good news is Colson Loveland and Marlon Klein both are going to be options. And Marlon Klein really showed up today. And then after he took that hard hit where he got that stinger, he was back in the game. And that's another thing I want to touch on. I maybe we'll get there, but the physicality of today's game. I mean, these boys look ready, and it's only April. So, I mean, I was extremely impressed with that.
Absolutely. And that's a theme with Michigan football, period. So that's a starting point. But then they backed it up by coming right out of the gate and saying, we're going to play tackle football and we're going to pop the pads. And guys were getting after it. And competitiveness, football, with all the talent evaluation involved, it's still the ultimate team sport. And it's also one of the ultimate competitors' sports. You have to be tough to play the sport and be effective. You have to be tough to win a national championship as they did last year. And sure, they've had a huge change in personnel. They've had a mix-up or influx of coaches. And of course, the head coach is no longer there. But I think you would have to be the ultimate Michigan hater to not recognize the culture that's been built, established, and been maintained there, regardless of the changes.
Yeah,
it's true.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's, and Chiron Moore's carrying it forward. Justin Trust, the new strength and conditioning coach, by all accounts, nothing's changed. It's status quo at Michigan. So, do I realistically think there's maybe going to be some drop off from a Ben Herbert to a Justin Trust? Sure. But I'm sure Justin Trust is going to have his own flair that he's going to add to it. But I mean, even so, and even with the coaching turnover, I mean, to me, watching today's game, I didn't see a different team and I didn't see a different culture. I saw the same team that won 3 Big Ten championships today in terms of the mentality, the physicality, and then it was smash mouth football. There was a lot of guys flashing today, like a Cole Sullivan, the freshman linebacker who was impressive. I mean, I'm very intrigued. I think a lot of Michigan fans got a lot of answers today. I mean, of course, it's spring ball, so you can only take so much. But in terms of, is the culture going to be intact? I think that's checked. Is the team going to remain physical? I think that's checked. And is the quarterback situation in a healthy position? And I think majority of us feel like it is. So I was really happy with today.
Yeah, absolutely. And contrasting from what I saw last week, and I did see some physicality last week, but this week just felt like, okay, Michigan wants it. They won another championship. The mentality was on the field, tackle football the whole way through, tough mentality. Offense still has more questions than defense. We knew that would be the case, especially like you said, TJ, that X position and finding that deep answer at wide receiver. But I think Frederick Moore took a step today towards that. But defense, on the other hand, they were some real playmakers. Ernest Talisman, I mean, he might be one of the toughest players in the entire country this year, and one of the most impactful this year in this upcoming year. He was good enough to be battling 6-year starter, 6-year senior Michael Barrett. He was battling him for starting reps. So you can't suck and be able to do that, right? So he's an impact player. I saw DJ Waller obviously, stood out and kind of had some plays there. And so the interception of that Jaden Denegal pass that DJ Waller made, really impressive. So he's contending for that cornerback 2 position. We know Will Johnson's going to be, he was obviously first team this past year. So he's going to be cornerback 1, but then Waller's making that case for cornerback 2.
Yeah, I'd agree. And I think DJ Waller really stood out. I mean, his ability in coverage looked really good. And then his ability to run support, man. I mean, he was laying the wood on those running backs. And, Jair Hill looked good too. He had a good breakup on Peyton O'Leary. He almost got mossed. I mean, Peyton O'Leary with another flash in the spring game, so that was cool. And yeah, man, I mean, Zeke Berry too. Shout out to Zeke Berry. He was all over the field. He was making plays. Jimmy Reuter made some plays, although he got burned. And TJ Guy, man, like that was my guy.
Yeah.
Really, if I've been on TJ Guy for a while, and I think he's gonna be a name that people are gonna get used to this season.
Yeah, Waller had himself quite a series with that pick that he, of course, had stripped away. So the offense got it back, but then he came right back and he penetrated on a fourth down and wrapped up the back and got a fourth down stop. So that was impressive. One of you mentioned TJ Guy. He's going to be on that second wave, correct, of edge rushers. And he showed that he might be playing himself into some more snaps.
Absolutely. I mean, so you got Josiah Stewart and Derek Moore, who are going to be our starting rush ends and Sam backers. But then TJ Guy is probably going to be, if you remember, there was that year where Josh Uche and Kwity Paye were the depth rush end guys and the Sam backers. I mean, I think we have a similar situation where TJ Guy is going to make a name for himself. And the depth is intriguing. I know there's a bit of a lack of depth at defensive tackle, which is why they're looking in the portal right now. There's a player by the name of CJ West that they're looking at out of
Kent State.
That's right, Kent State. And so encouraging. Although I don't know about you, John. When I was watching this today, I was like, man, I just wish we had Rod Moore. Like if we had Rod Moore, I'd be like, personally, I just feel like we look dangerous, man. Wide receiver is my question right now. And offensive line, we got to make sure that's solidified. But other than that, man, the tight ends, the running backs, the quarterback situation, I'm comfortable enough to say we're going to be competitive. It's obviously not an elite system like a USC, right? It's not that, but we can score points and we can get the ball down the field, and that's what's important.
Absolutely.
You didn't want to make that comparison to any other elite systems, did you?
No, well, like Texas?
Sure. Yeah, like Texas. Well, you guys both alluded to it. This is all about today and what we saw, not just today, but I'm going to start to move this conversation more toward if you put together today with everything else we've heard in the last month, because everybody keep in check in regards to what we saw today. Today was very important because, as you both have emphasized, physicality and actually playing a football game as opposed to what we see generally, outside of the quarterback position. We're seeing a game that's played through the snap, through the whistle, tackling to the ground, the whole deal. But it's one of 15 evaluations overall for the coaching staff. So guys could have a great spring and for some reason not have a great day today or vice versa. So we need to keep the evaluations in check because as most people across the country are checking the box that Ohio State's going to win a Big Ten championship. And if they don't win it, Oregon's going to win the Big Ten championship. I've been saying since Michigan walked off the field with the trophy from last year, hold on here. Hold on. Michigan is going to have something serious to say about this. I would not be surprised in any way if you told me any one of those three won the Big Ten championship. And beyond that, I certainly give Penn State and USC a fighting chance of some sort. Now, anybody else, I would be blown away with the Big Ten going to anybody outside of those five. Yeah. But certainly, I think those three are in the running, and we certainly have all sorts of time throughout the summer to break that down. Not that you guys are open to say whatever you want about that. I'm just kind of I'm kind of counterbalancing the thought that we're going to have people out there who are checking again. And I'm not necessarily talking about people watching us right now who are Michigan fans, but people across the nation that are just defaulting this championship to Ohio State. And then if they're not, it seems to be Oregon as the second one in line that are going to have that initial armchair quarterback overreaction Monday to what they saw today and say, oh, well, Michigan's still Michigan and maybe they'll win the Big Ten championship. Okay. The truth lies somewhere in between, that we have three extremely capable football teams that could all win the Big Ten title.
Well, and I was going back and forth with with our buddy Spaz from the Oregon Ducks Live program that we do. And he was, I was saying this might be the today might be the toughest defense that Michigan faces all year. And then he was saying, you might want to retract that because Oregon has the best defense they've had in 10 years. So
Okay.
I don't know. I'm not. And I said, no, I'm not retracting it because I do believe that Michigan's defense is returning a championship caliber defense, especially with Kenneth Grant, Mason Graham, both coming back, both definitively saying we're coming back. And all these rumors about transferring, nope, that's not happening. So with that said, yeah, I'm feeling pretty good.
Yeah, we got a big three in the Big Ten right now. The beauty of it is, if you look at the schedule, we play Oregon, we play Ohio State, so we're going to find out on the field who the real king of the Big Ten is. And I do think USC is an interesting team who could make a run for it, who we also play, so we'll find out. And Penn State, I don't know. I mean, they're a great team. They're obviously a top program in a sense, but they just seem to not be able to get over that mountain. So I guess if I had to rank it, I'd actually put Penn State fifth. But I think the other four teams can make a good run for it. But I mean, I'll tell you, I mean, I feel confident in Michigan. I think we can run the table again for the most. I mean, I'm not gonna say undefeated, but I do think we can capture the Big Ten title again.
TJ, before we put a cap on the quarterback situation, because you both have addressed the quarterback situation from today, a lot of people in the chat, we got Moose, we got Nick, we've got others, they're elevating Davis Warren to the top.
Yeah. So Davis Warren won the day. He won the battle, but did he win the war? Right. So I would argue that Orji probably still has the lead. It seems to be the quarterback that the coaching staff and program are pushing the most. And I think the reason being is the upside is just so much higher. So again, if Orji can just be a 62% passer, man, then he is everything we need in that regard. But here's the positive. If he, for some reason, can't and it doesn't work out, Davis Warren seems to be very capable to be a fairly tier 2 type level quarterback in the Big Ten. And again, and here's another thing too, though. Let's see what we do in the portal for offensive line, because there is some smoke that we're looking for a right tackle. So if we don't land a right tackle, I think the coaching staff would be more comfortable with a Davis Warren because he can escape the pocket. If we do land a right tackle, I do think Davis Warren could be very successful in this offense because and also I'll say Davis Warren, his progressions. I mean, he was doing progressions. He did look like the better quarterback today. But I'd say the war is far from over. And today the battle was Davis Warren's.
Yeah, I agree completely. Obviously Alex Orji did have that touchdown run, and he did show that he can pass the ball. He had some shaky moments in the very beginning, but one of the biggest questions coming into today from people, and I kept saying he can. We did see a little bit in last year's spring game. We saw it I know his completion wasn't great in high school, but we have seen him pass before, and we'll see him pass today, and he's going to complete some balls, and he completed some balls, and he even, I thought, looked good on quite a few of them. I think he's got the advantage, and if you go back to 2021, Cade McNamara's stats, 64.2% completion from Cade McNamara. Okay, 15 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 75-76 passing yards. If Alex Orji can do that and add on the run ability that he has, game over.
That's the key. Exactly.
Put him as QB1 right away.
A two-dimensional quarterback is exactly what makes him so dangerous.
I'm the last guy in the world to jump to conclusions. I got to say that when I watched the first two passes out of Alex Orji's hand, he had a dump off to Bredson. And he threw it at his ankle. So there's an incomplete. That should be like a 95% throw. And then the second one, I forget who the wide receiver was. He had him in the clear. He had beaten his man. He was drifting toward the sideline, had all sorts of room to throw it out in front to the sideline. And it was back behind him. And I said, I just thought, okay, I'm going to continue to monitor this based on. Now, if that would have been somebody else, I wouldn't have. If that was JJ McCarthy in last year's spring game, I wouldn't have thought twice about it. But it being Alex Orji, I just thought, okay, let's keep watching here and see what happens.
Yeah, no, I thought the same thing. I mean, I was actually like, oh boy, I was a little nervous. I was like, damn, like, and I will be honest, the very first thought after those 2 incompletions was, oh, we gotta go portal shopping, But
Yep.
yeah, I mean, he settled in though. He found a little rhythm. He also started looking more comfortable in the pocket. The thing with Orji though is if you watch his feet, he's got a little bit of a happy feet going on. That's going to take more repetition, more time in practice. But if you saw, I mean, he actually had some pretty damn good throws where he had that touch throw over the linebacker, over the defender. That was really nice. I mean, I think he settled in and played pretty good. The only thing, if I had to complain about anything, the rotation of the quarterbacks, I didn't quite understand. Like Orji and Warren got their series in the first quarter, and then they kind of went away from it until later in the game. And I don't understand.
Was it strategy from, because remember we had Wink Martindale and Kirk Campbell were the head coaches for these games. And maybe it was a strategy thing. Like, let's, see what we have behind. And then if we need to make up ground later, then you put back in the starters or the two that are emerging as starters.
Maybe they wanted to see how they would open the game and how they would close the game with the pressure on. So, I mean, that could potentially be it. But I mean, and I guess that makes because if you rotate every other series with the quarterbacks, you may not get a Orji Warren battle at the end where they went off. So and then and Davis Warren, I mean that throw to Kendrick Bell, I mean that's clutch. I mean he looked pretty good there. So and we got what we wanted, so it worked out.
Jaden Denegal, any thoughts about his performance?
Yeah, Jack Tuttle and Jaden Davis just moved ahead of you, my friend. But it was shaky. He's a fringe 4-star quarterback out of California. I just don't think he's ready for big time Big Ten football, man. So I mean, it is what it is. Everyone can't be QB1, and we'll see if he sticks around for the season. To be honest with you, I don't know. He might be a transfer candidate.
Yeah, he might be gone. Because if he slides down, I think he'd be okay with being second.
He's not,
maybe, but if he gets lapped by a true freshman and he's at the QB5 position, he's probably gone.
Yeah, I'd say so. Because Jaden Davis looked better than him, to be honest. So
the defense also gave Jaden Davis a lot of trouble. The defense was. I noticed they were really covering well against Jaden Davis, and so some of it was him, but a lot of it was just excellent defensive coverage on those receivers for those plays. So I think more to come from Jaden. I want to see more from him for sure.
Yeah.
When I see a player like Denegal, I'm just thinking, and again, quarterback being a different position than any other position for the simple fact there's only one on the field. So you can't put yourself in a position where, okay, I'm the third best cornerback, so I'm going to play a lot, or even the fifth best cornerback, I can still get on the field. Just if you're the fifth best quarterback, then if football is your priority, then I'd be in the portal tomorrow going to Appalachian State or somewhere in the group of 5 where I could compete for a job or possibly be the front runner to win a job, as opposed to if education is important to him.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that both can't be at the same time, but if that's then you stay at Michigan and you've got championship rings that you can flash at everyone, in 40 years and say, I played at Michigan and we won championships and I got a great education and I majored in something other than football after that. Both paths are available.
Yeah, I think he got his degree already, so
okay.
We'll see. We'll be on the lookout. Eastern Michigan might be looking for a quarterback, though.
Oh man, yeah. It's again, we gotta be careful about reading too much into this spring game. Let's see. I mean, look. All of these players in real games are not going up against Wink Martindale's defense with a bunch of veteran players who are going to be playing on Sundays very, very soon. They're going to be playing against, teams like oh, I don't know, or I don't know if I forget if we're playing Indiana this year, but like there's going to be some teams that aren't so great, right? Mixed in with the Texases but even Texas or you know, a USC defensively, we know they're not as good as a lot of the players that played on the maize and blue team today. So yeah, we got to just take it all with a grain of salt. But yeah, Donegal didn't look great. But I will say Davis Warren definitely rose up for sure from the performance today.
Yeah, that's all true about Donegal and the defense he faced today. However, he's still competing against the same quarterbacks. And so if he's fourth or fifth, then he's still fourth or fifth. That's his situation. TJ, the name Zeke Berry, he flashed a number of times today. Where does he fit in?
I think he leads for that strong safety spot opposite of Makari Page. I mean, I think he's the guy who has the pole position. I saw him out there. I didn't see did Quentin Johnson make any plays because I didn't see it.
I didn't see it.
Braden Hillman's the other one competing for that position. Didn't really see him do anything. I'd say Zeke Berry is going to be the guy. I mean, and there's been a lot of positive reports out of camp. He's had some good practices, and he showed it today in the game, which is really what you want to see. You want to see consistency, right? So you're getting reports, you're getting leaks out of spring ball, and then to see guys actually do it in the game today is just really it's encouraging. And we saw a lot of that today from TJ God to Zeke Berry, you know. So very good.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, and the trucking of Khalil Mullings there was really something. Yeah, he's making a name for himself in that safety position. And look, Michigan needs somebody. Thanks, Moose. Nice.
Moose coming in here. Thank you so much, Moose, for the 5 spot. Moose's standouts today. Offense. Davis Warren, Alex Orji, Jaden Davis, Donovan Edwards, Frederick Moore, Kendrick Bell. Defense, Sullivan, Nichols, the linebacker, 33. Yeah, he made some plays. Hill, Houseman. We talked about Waller and Berry.
Yeah.
I'm with you on all those.
Yeah, I also think Tyler Morris looked good today. And Jaden McBurrows. I would add Jaden McBurrows and Tyler Morris. I have him in my notes. And I think Tyler Morris out of all the wide receivers, although I guess you could say Fred Moore. I guess Fred Moore probably won the day with wide receivers. But I thought Tyler Morris made some good plays with the opportunity he was given. And then obviously the tight ends. I think Marlon Klein looked, I already mentioned that, but he looked really strong today too.
Yeah, Morris, they were using Morris more in a short to medium level. So it was very workmanlike. He came, he punched his time sheet, he came in, he did his job, and then he left, right? That's what it was like. Because he just wasn't in that position to go over the top like a Frederick Moore was able to do.
Yeah. Did Jayshon Barnum play today?
I didn't see much.
I don't recall. Yeah, I'm gonna rewatch it, but I didn't. I didn't see anything from him today.
He was talked about during the broadcast. I don't know if he played. TJ's going to rewatch it. You are dedicated, TJ, rewatching the spring game.
Oh yeah,
they might already have him slotted at that. I got to say, they might already have him slotted as a starter. But so the transfer situation, they probably just didn't need to see, the coaching staff probably just didn't think they needed to see anything.
I agree. But also we don't have football till September, Mark. Like that's a long time. That's too long. So I'm definitely going to say that's on the DVR and it's going to be there for like at least a month.
And those are the type things that I should be doing. But when I default to old football games, I'm watching like the 1983 NFC Championship game or something. That's what I'm doing in the off season. But yours is much more productive. That's what we need here. So thank you for that, TJ.
Yeah, no problem. I'm here for it.
Folks, we do appreciate you being here. These two every Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern time. And also Ferris Khan, who I believe from what is indicated in the chat was actually at the big house. So we'll have to see what Ferris had to say. It looked like it was a bit nippy out there. Joel Klatt had the gloves on. Others had the hats on.
Yeah, I think it was 48 degrees, maybe 50. So, I mean,
that's like summertime.
Yeah, it's
like,
Michigan weather. It's Michigan weather. Yeah, I don't know what the Ferris asked. What was the attendance? I didn't see any figures for that, so I don't know.
No idea.
I don't think it was overly impressive, nor do I think it really matters. So these schools that like to boast about their attendance at spring games, that's fine. Okay.
Can I mention one more person I saw? So one more player, Zach Marshall. So Zach Marshall is a player, tight end, who I had the chance to talk to about 6-7 months ago, and he's such a humble, like down to earth, like player, and he wants to put in his, he wants to make his bones, put in his time, and then get to that. And I thought that in the opportunities that he did get, I'm pretty sure he caught every ball. So Orji went to him a couple of times, and there was one pass in triple coverage that Orji went to Marshall, and it was a catch. Might have been one of Orji's most impressive today, where Marshall was very covered, and Orji was able to throw it on a really tight window to get to him. So I thought that he looked pretty solid as a third option as a receiving tight end.
Yeah, he's another one that's gotten a lot of good hype out of camp. So I mean, it was a shame. I can't remember. He was wide open and on the left side of the field. Unfortunately, Orji didn't see him. That would have been a nice connection. But I think again, the tight end position's healthy at Michigan, man. That's it's good to see. Yeah, and I thought, in regards to Ferris's comment, I thought the broadcast. So I didn't watch the Ohio State broadcast, so I didn't really have anything to compare it with. But I thought the broadcast.
Watch Michigan twice? No, I'm just kidding, TJ. Keep going.
Yeah, no, but I thought the broadcast was good. I mean, I thought it was very. The only thing, and I heard about this complaint about the Ohio State broadcast, was they do too much of the cut screen where they're interviewing the guy and then the game plays.
Yeah, you don't get to see the plays sometimes.
If anything, make the damn interview a small corner a small box in the corner. Like, stop ruining the game, man. Like, that
was my complaint too. I was like, wait, what happened to first and second down? Because you're too busy talking to Donovan Edwards, and it's first and second down we just missed there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in terms of spring game broadcasts in general, I think that they've improved across the board considerably, because spring games used to look across the board pretty much like Michigan's look like today. Everybody used to take that approach. So at whatever point they started broadcasting spring games, I don't know when that was, 15 or 20 years ago, you were watching a pretty legitimate spring game with tackling and everybody's in play except the quarterback. And I'm guessing at some point the quarterback was in play, knowing how college football and football in general has progressed in regards to physicality. So they would broadcast it like a game. So fine. But these teams have largely backed off. Shoot, Michigan State's going to go out there sometime today. They might even be on right now. Mm-hmm. And unless, we'll have to see with Jonathan Smith's approach, but Mel Tucker's approach, and we'll see this with Florida State today, they just run a bunch of drills. Like, they got guys running through cones and running fades, and they're just, so it's basically a TV show that you're presenting to just say, this is the 2024 Michigan State Spartans, and we're going to talk about them. And in the background, they're running drills, and then we'll run some ISOs on some guys to let you know. Now, this was much more of a football game. Ohio State's was somewhere in between. They ran a game, a scrimmage. I hate to call it a game, but they were all over the place with, we're thudding for a couple series. And then all of a sudden you see guys are tackling, and you're like, oh, they're tackling now. And then they were back to, they were all over the place.
It's one of these.
But like you guys, I figure if I see Klatt and Day talking on a full screen between plays, like, why does that need to get, like, I know what the guys look like, first of all. Right. Secondly, even if I don't know, I've been watching them for 40 seconds. So why do I have to watch them during the play? And it was, this constant, like, the screens come. No, we don't need that. So maybe they learned something from last week, because I didn't notice much of that.
Yeah.
And probably because of the way Michigan was playing as well.
Yeah, I heard it was much worse last week. But I mean, they really got to stop doing it because it's just annoying as hell. But so I wanted to ask you, Mark, as a rival fan, what was your thoughts? Your like just natural thoughts of the spring game. You know, were you like I don't know, did you see any weaknesses that you thought were good, or were you a little like, all right, well maybe there's something going on here? Like, what were your initial thoughts on the game?
I have very few changes in my thoughts about Michigan football.
Mhm.
This was the best team last year. This was the best team in the nation. This has been the best team in the Big Ten for 3 years. I find very little to separate Ohio State and Michigan throughout the rest of the season, but Michigan soundly defeated them 2 out of 3 times and beat them all 3 times. So then I always process things like through process of elimination. Okay, that was Michigan last year. Okay, well, we've got a lot to process here because they got a different head coach. They've moved around coaching pieces on the staff. However, as I'm sure you guys have addressed, and I have stated in less of an expert fashion on Michigan football, what I've been impressed with is the approach of we've got a good thing going. Let's keep this going as much as possible. Therefore, we're hiring guys that have been here before, have strong or close ties to the other guys in the system. Of course, Wink Martindale is kind of the classic example of that, but everyone they hired had a connection to Michigan football. So they're trying very hard, and I think it's to their credit, to Chiron Moore's credit, to keep a good thing going. And then I just think that they have driven home the point of physicality and toughness and poise, and it's difficult to rate from a spring game, but I think that that's fully entrenched. And sure, are they going to be hurt by their losses, personnel losses? Yeah, those are substantial losses. It's a lot of losses. They may break an NFL draft record next weekend. But I've never discounted them 1 second since they won the national title last year of repeating in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice to hear that Michigan has finally gotten the respect that I think that they've wanted for quite some time. But, you know, the action of beating Alabama and then going and just trucking Washington, basically not letting Michael Penix and 3 NFL wide receivers do much except for 1 drive. Like, that was unreal, right? Yeah. Michael Penix is what was one of my favorite quarterbacks last year. Like, I thought his zip on the ball, his ability to make all kinds of plays all over the field, and those wide receivers, especially Adunze, that they were legit, right? So to be able to shut that down like Michigan did, even though 17 to 18 players are going to be drafted, there are still quite a few with especially on defense, right? Offense is really what we needed to see today. What we needed to see was, okay, Davis Warren can make some explosive pass plays. Alex Orji can make some explosive run plays, and he's capable of throwing the ball. Great. Donovan Edwards is looking like Donovan Edwards again. And we start to see these players coming up and making some plays like Frederick Moore. We needed Frederick Moore to step up. And so that's exciting.
So I'll put it this way, and hopefully you guys can understand the position of a rival fan base. So I'll try to represent, even though I'm a neutral observer here, I'm going to try to represent the Ohio State fan base in this. And so try to understand this, that Ohio State's been the best program in this conference for 20 years, up until 2 or 3 years ago.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And it really hasn't been close. And even when they haven't won the Big Ten championship, like take 2015, Michigan State goes off to the playoffs and loses by 38 points to everybody knew Ohio State's still the best team in the Big Ten. They had 1 off week. They went 12-1. You know, those are kind of the only times that they've not won the Big Ten is they were still looked upon as, they're still the best team in the Big Ten. They just happen to lose one game. They lost the wrong game. So they have owned this for so long, and Michigan is now the best. But Michigan, to its credit, I'll give Michigan a lot of credit because Ohio State pretty much suppressed the whole league in a way. Michigan has been able to eclipse Ohio State, and Ohio State has not taken some big drop.
Right.
Ohio State took advantage of Michigan being down Michigan program, bad coaching, hires, all of that. They were on top of Michigan when they were good, but not great, but also marginal Michigan teams. So Michigan's been able to elevate without Ohio State dropping.
Right.
And so that's a bit tough for an Ohio State fan's pride to take, because if you go back to 2020, there were no signs of this happening. Like, this came out of nowhere. And
well, you know, Mark, I was calling in because you made a comment, I think it was last night on the Big Ten show, that you were the defender of Harbaugh in the Arrow, and I was one of the people that called in after 2020, and I said we need to look at other options. And look, I didn't think Harbaugh was capable of doing that complete overhaul and doing everything. I thought he would probably just go to the NFL, right? Or do something in that realm. But he decided, I'm going to take the 50% pay cut and radically overhaul the staff and institute a new offensive playbook and bring in the Ravens defense. And I just didn't think that was all that stuff was going to happen. I think a lot of Michigan fans didn't. And so it was impressive what he did. And it's rare. It only happened really with Brian Kelly and Notre Dame that I can recall, that level of, okay, we're keeping the same head coach, but we're going to just radically overhaul everything. And it actually worked to win a national championship. That's very rare.
So something you said in there, John, during your last spiel caused me to go on that bit of a rant that I'm going to finish. And it was about respect. Yeah. Because it has to be annoying to the typical Michigan fan, on one hand, to be like, we don't care what anyone says about the investigation, or just that Ohio State's still more talented, and this was just 1 year, and it was a one-off, and then it was a two-off, then it was a three-off. That there has to be some level of, okay, I'm going to ignore the trolling, but on the other hand, that has to be a bit annoying when you're not given the credit that you earned. So on the flip side, when you dominate for 20 years and you own the conference, then it happens once. There's still a legitimate room to say, that was just one game. We're still the best. You did win the championship this year. Okay. When it happens twice, and I said between 2021 and 22, when people said, is Ohio State still the best program in the Big Ten? I said, I believe they are, but if they lose this game to Michigan this year, Michigan, to me, is officially the best program in the conference. They've won on both fields, and it's not like they went 8-4 and pulled off an upset. They were on even terms, 11-0, and they won the game. So they're the best team. They're the best in the conference. But again, because Ohio State, for as much as their haters want to say otherwise, they really haven't regressed much. If they have, it's been that much. So they're still looking for a way to say, we are the best. And there is some validation there, but you can't get past the 3 in a row. And especially since Michigan then goes and beats two of the other best teams in the country and wins the national championship. So it's not up for debate right now.
Right. Well, I mean, I think the frustration lies with our fan base is just Ohio State's lack of acknowledgement of the physicality difference. Like, they just want to have all these other excuses, whether it be weather or like Ryan Day's, like, I don't know if this frustrates you, Mark, but Ryan Day's like, oh, well, just like 5 plays is the only difference in the game. It's like, that's not what it was 2 years ago.
Last play away.
Last season you could argue it was a far closer game because it was. But I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, I feel like personally watching that game last year, Ohio State maybe on 2 series out physical Michigan. On 2 series. There was a series where they drove the ball down and they literally muscled that defensive line. And that was impressive. And I'll be honest, watching the game, I was like, shoot, like, damn it. Did they find their I don't know, their motivation? What did they, I don't even know. But then going forward, they lost it. So I just think Ohio State's lack of acknowledgement on the reality of the series is probably the most annoying thing. And then you have, of course, I'd say the vocal minority about the whole asterisk thing. But I mean, outside of that, I mean, I think there's also a lot of Ohio State fans coming around, though. I mean, in the sense of, okay, we have a legitimate rivalry here. We have 2 top teams in, we are essentially Georgia, Alabama right now for the big time. We know this, right? Mm-hmm. And Georgia used to have an Alabama problem. And Michigan had an Ohio State problem. And now Ohio State has a Michigan problem. So, and now we both have some newcomers who potentially an Oregon and USC problem coming. So, I mean, it's just kind of the reality of it. And I just think, I just think the lack of acknowledgement is probably the biggest frustration with our fan base at this current time.
Yeah, it's reasonable. Now, I did take a particular site and article to task this week because I did not agree with their take. And there's all sorts of things that I could say about this, and I'll be upfront about it because it's out there. So Blue by 90 posted something, and I just thought that the attention given to the details of the matchups, meaning how many minutes and seconds Michigan was in the lead, was totally overshadowing the true context. So the article originated because Ryan Day was making comments during the spring game that, let's understand, he's not initiating these comments. He's being asked by Joel Klatt, what are you guys looking at? What do you, and Joel Klatt's saying this very much in light of what's expected of this team to win a national championship. That's what's expected of you. So what do you need to do to get there? And Ryan Day's basically just saying, we need to tighten this up. We need to so we're down to that 1% kind of, he didn't state it this way, but doing everything right. But we got to clean up, whether that's a physical thing or it's a schematic thing or whatever it is, we need to find it. And so he basically said, we've been a play here, a play there, a drive here, a drive there away. Well, this article picked that apart to the nth degree. Michigan's been in the lead this many minutes and seconds. And okay, no, back up. Ryan Day he wasn't talking specifically about the Michigan game, number one. He's talking about them winning a national championship, I think is the primary goal, even though this game is bigger than any in college football. So in 2022, they could have won a national championship and still lost to Michigan. So we all know that. They missed a 50-yard field goal. So he's correct in stating we were 1 play away. The next season, they drive it on the final drive to the 35-yard line? They had just hit on 2 25, 30-yard passes. So are they 1 play away? Yeah, if they complete the drive, they win 31-30, and they're the number 1 seed in the playoff against Alabama as well. So they're taking Michigan's spot. I think that's all he was basically stating. No, they were not 1 play away from Michigan in 2022, and they were not 1 play away from Michigan in 2021. No.
I think you're right.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that's probably the frustration of the Ohio State side, where you kind of have this culty behavior of Michigan. I'll be honest, and where it's like, oh, well, we're just the greatest now, and Ohio State's just a bottom feeder when it's not the case. I mean, Ohio State's obviously still a top 5 program, top 3 probably. Yeah, I mean, that's why this rivalry is so beautiful, because you have these extremes that are that clash, and I would agree. I mean, if Marvin Harrison doesn't get the concussion and you had a field goal kicker, you're beating TCU in the national championship. And then the Ohio State-Michigan game, I think we will all agree, a far closer game than the previous 2. So, I mean, I don't think there's really any inaccuracy. And the truth is, too, with Ohio State, man, they're a top program. It is what it is, and we're a top program. And this is when you have two greats. We're talking degrees of separation is what separates great things, from like a Jordan to a LeBron or whatever. Like we're talking degrees of separation here. So that's what makes the rivalry so great and what makes it so fun to debate with each other.
Yeah, we basically have another Bo Woody mid-70s type situation, but what makes it more fun is the whole drama of a Big Ten championship game, a playoff, all of that.
Yeah. Although now we both get in the playoff like a little bit easier. So I'll tell you, man, if we ever face each other in the playoff one day, which it will happen one day, that's going to put this rivalry on another level, man. Like I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. Social media has taken this rivalry to another level.
Oh yeah. It's nasty. It's honestly nasty, man. Like I don't know, man. The whole Twitter, I like Twitter. I'm not anti-Twitter at all, but I'll tell you what, man, some of these debates are just wild. I'll just say that. They're wild. Yes, they are. All right. See, I wish we could have them call in, right? Because I would say, like I'm a Michigan fan, right? And
call in.
You guys want calls? We can take calls.
But please tell me, how is OSU? Who's above OSU? You can argue us. I have no problem with that. That's fine, right? And we know Georgia's a top team, right? Oregon's a top team. Texas is a top team. If OSU is not top 3, they're top 5.
See, this is where either people are just being dumb because they're that loyal to a certain program and put blinders on, or they're taking the semantics down to the exact fine line. And so you said top 3 program, maybe a top 5 program, and maybe there's that much difference between number 3 and number 5, and we could debate for 5 hours who's 3 and who's 2 and who's 4 and who's but it's a general statement.
Right. And you can't say Alabama's above them because there's too many question marks right now. It's a whole new coaching staff.
So, folks, we do have the link in the chat if somebody does want to call concerning anything we've discussed or more, anything concerning Michigan football. We are here to hear from you. And we've got TJ, we've got John.
I would like to see cut from a different cloth call in, because he's been coming at me in the comments and everything else. Come on the show. Call. So the Davis Warren thing, I did say maybe it was like 2 or 3 weeks ago that Davis Warren was a depth guy. Okay. Because I based that on what I saw with my own 2 eyes in 2023. Anytime he took the field, he looked like a depth guy. He looked like somebody who was just not at the same level as QB1, QB2. What I saw today was very different. What I saw today was the same that I saw 2 spring games ago when he did a great job. I think it was 2 spring games ago. And I hope he does well. I would love if Davis Warren did well enough to outpace Alex Orji and get the job, because that means he earned it, right? Yeah. Because they're not going to give him the job unless he legitimately outduels Alex Orji in all aspects. I think that would be great. That would be great for our season. So yeah, I think I said he was a depth guy. He's obviously not just a depth guy. He's going to be one of the maybe 2 or 3 at the top. And that's great for the entire program.
Yeah. But like also, it's okay to evolve opinions with new data, right? Yeah. So, I mean, obviously there's more data. We now see what Davis Warren looks like. I mean, I thought Davis Warren was competing for the starting spot through spring, but only from reports, right? So then you get into the position where it's like, all right, whose intel do you want to listen to, and do you believe it? Because it's really just hearsay. We're hearing it from someone at the practice who's then relaying it to the public world. So, I think anyone who gets hung up on a position that was held 6 months ago or a year ago, or so be it, even weeks ago, opinions evolve, and that's the whole point of talking about things. Like, we're doing a reaction show today. Our opinion of a player today could be vastly different week 3 or 4 of the regular season. Like, things change pretty drastically in sports.
We've got a call coming in from our buddy Christopher. I said that we could discuss anything related to Michigan football except the 1984 Holiday Bowl. Let's make that condition. Christopher, how you doing today?
Good. How are you, Mark?
Oh, I don't believe we can hear you. Can you guys hear Christopher?
It's
Quiet.
very, very quiet.
Can you hear me now?
No, for some reason it's very faint. So you. Hello,
Okay.
Christopher.
Hello?
You turned your camera on, but we need your audio to be.
Yeah.
Maybe
Great.
talk directly into it.
Hello?
We hear you. It's just quiet.
Yeah, for some reason, Christopher, for all the times that you've called, your audio was always fine. Today it's not.
Want me to log out?
You're good now.
Please do. Give
Huh?
Wait.
you.
It
I
sounded better.
just upped his mic.
Thank
I
you,
don't know
John.
what else
Chris.
to do. I tried to up my mic. I can't do anything else.
There you go. We can hear you now.
We're good, Chris.
Well, yeah, I won't refer. The only thing I wanted to, I've already said much about it, but
I was kidding.
I know you were
somewhat.
kidding, but you said something not too long ago in reference to it. So I kind of felt like maybe I should at least make a comment about it if you don't mind. If you don't want to talk about it, I guess that's okay. But
Well, something tells me I'm going to be much more amused by this than anybody watching who wants to hear about Michigan's spring game.
no, this is fine. You keep saying that Michigan was a national champion, but based upon, I guess, what I think should matter, they still have at least one more hoop to jump through. Don't they have to beat the best team or the defending champion, or they just get it without having to? I'm not going to say that they don't.
Are we
You referring
talking
to
about
Georgia?
2023 Michigan?
Well, I'm just saying, they won a
No,
championship.
I'm trying to clarify something, Chris. You were talking about the 2023 Michigan Wolverines, correct?
Well, I'm talking about last season, sure.
Yes. And you're saying that they are not the national champions.
All right. Yeah, without getting into a whole long debate about what it is, yeah, I'm giving them credit for being a national champion, but I don't know that it's a unanimous championship. They still, they didn't have anything else to show. They demonstrated they could beat everybody, and there's no question that they were the best team. And I guess getting to overtime against Alabama, that's definite proof that they could beat Alabama any place, anywhere, anytime. And there's a few other. Well,
Chris,
you get one
that's
game.
never been accomplished in the history of any sport, that you can prove that you can beat any team at any time. They would be playing like 365 days a year. There's a format, in Michigan won the Big Ten championship with an undefeated record, and they won the 2 playoff games against the teams that their championship is as legitimate as anyone's championship.
not if you want to go to a playoff, it isn't.
But it
that's
wasn't
kind
a
of
playoff.
well, not if you want to go to a playoff that includes the 4 best teams, it isn't. But that's kind of another topic for another day. But
So your point is because Michigan didn't play Georgia, it's not as valid as it would be. What other team would you like to see them play besides Georgia?
My argument isn't really about Georgia, if you want to know the truth. It really isn't.
Okay.
I mean, they can make it about Georgia if they want to, but one of the things you said about BYU was, well, they didn't play the best team in the best game. They played the whatever it was, the 50th best team in the 50th best team, or whatever, whatever you want to say about it.
That's
right?
a completely different scenario.
Let's
stick with 2023.
Oh, no.
Well, no, and then the other thing, Mark, I just want to defend my position. You told me when I brought into the belt championships, you told me how unimportant and how stupid and that's what Michigan won, was a belt championship. So does it matter or does it matter? You got to tell me whether you believe it really matters. And if it does, then yeah, they did everything they could. If it doesn't, then it doesn't matter. That's kind of where I get kind of mad, because BYU played in a belt championship the very next season, but belt championships carry over to the next year. They played the very best team in the very best game.
Chris, can we focus please on 2023, 2024?
Well, no,
let's not bring up anything else.
No, it's
can
relevant.
we do that?
It's relevant because you said if it's an official championship, that means BYU played in an official championship and got beat. So you can use that against it, but you can also say that what you're saying isn't really fair.
So to back up what John is saying, Chris, I would be happy to have whatever senseless argument you want to have some other time, but we're on a Michigan post-game show.
I'm kind of mad, Mark. What's senseless about it? There's nothing. The only senseless part
it's
about
ridiculous.
it is you. No, is you. You're the only senseless
Bye,
part about it.
Chris. Bye.
Hey, Chris,
Bye.
we will give you one more chance on 2023 Michigan. Is there any?
Well, no, you said that they were a national championship. They're a belt champion. Use the right words. They were a belt champion. That's all I really want from you is the truth. The truth. I don't want, consensus. Everybody agrees. Not everybody agrees. They were a belt championship winner. That's what they won.
Based on my understanding of your belt championship.
No, it's not my belt championship. It's what they won. They won a belt championship.
But that's
what they won.
They can be
they did
both.
Not win. They did not win a playoff. They did not win an NCAA. They won a belt title.
So how didn't they win a playoff?
Because they didn't beat Georgia.
Okay.
Michigan won the consensus. It's called consensus. Yes, it is. Look it up.
No, they didn't.
It's called the consensus national champion because every outlet from the college football playoff specifically, the AP, the coaches poll, the Collie matrix, every single metric, Chris.
No.
Consensus. That's what consensus means. Look it up in a dictionary. We're moving on to the next caller.
They would have won a playoff. They would have beaten Georgia.
We've got somebody behind.
Georgia should have beat Alabama, Chris. I mean, that's just the reality of it.
No,
we can't decide Georgia's. If Georgia beat Alabama, we would have played Georgia. We can't make.
Michigan didn't beat Alabama. They tied them. They went to overtime and beat them in overtime. That's not the same. They tied Alabama.
Overtime's a part of the rules, man. That's how it works.
No, it's not. It's not part of regulation rules. They tied Alabama, and it went to overtime, and they beat them in overtime. It's not a regulation win.
How do you decide if there's a tie in regulation?
I don't
How
decide
is that decided?
I don't decide anything. You're asking me to decide it? I don't.
How would you choose to decide it if overtime's not valid?
I don't. I didn't say it was invalid. I just said it wasn't a regulation win, which it wasn't. So I mean, it's like you're telling me I'm full of shit or whatever. It's like I don't know. I saw the game and it went to overtime.
Absolutely, I'm telling you, you're full of shit. Absolutely.
Well, I'm telling you, you're full of shit. There you go.
Chris, have you ever
heard look up consensus. Look up consensus.
It's not my consensus. It's not my consensus. It's not your consensus.
Well, nobody cares.
Have you ever heard of a game called the Super Bowl, Chris?
Let me tell you one more thing, Mark. And this is
Chris, I'm asking you a question. Have you ever heard of a game called the Super Bowl?
Yeah, it's like a marketing thing, and it's supposed to everybody's supposed to be all in on it, and it's supposed to tell you everything you need to know, and it goes down to one game, and it's marketing.
It's the most legitimate championship you could ever devise.
No, it isn't. No, it isn't.
It is. But anyway, it was decided in overtime because the two teams had tied after regulation. So they had to determine they weren't just going to walk off the field and say, we're going to argue about it for the next year.
Well, in soccer, they use penalty kicks. How come they don't use penalty kicks in the NFL? They could do that just as easily. I don't know. What's the difference?
Because it's about actually playing. Chris, we've got other calls. You are welcome to call me another time. We appreciate it.
Have a good night. Bye.
Okay. Well, we'll forget that even happened. Ferris here.
What's up, Ferris?
Hey, I just figured I'm around if you need me.
I don't know what we needed there.
Ferris, by the way, Ferris Khan on location at the spring game today.
Yeah, I posted a couple of videos. As you might know, 5G, Wi-Fi, whatever, it's not perfect in Michigan Stadium. So what I will say is that it felt like a spring training game, which is a good thing. You know, I've been to a Tiger spring training game, and everybody's happy. Everybody's thinking, I get to sit in better seats than I normally. I'm not way in the upper end zone. I can sit at the 50-yard line, whatever. So people were really, really happy. Lots of young kids, not necessarily college students, though. I didn't see that many college students. So that's kind of an interesting little side note. It was cold, but the Buddy's Pizza, they had that. So you could, the concessions, all that kind of stuff. People are having a lot of fun. So it was great. Also, just a note, I put it in the chat. I did try I do have an iPhone 15 with the 5X zoom, the Max with the 5X zoom. And yeah, it can get really good footage. So I think probably it's the right time to have helmet communication. So
So all together now, thank you, Connor Stallions, for modernizing modern college football for all of us.
Yeah, definitely. It was hard for me to kind of see offensive line play. Obviously it's pretty difficult when you're 35 rows up trying to decipher everything that's going on. So what did you guys think of the O-line?
Yeah, I mean, because it was the teams were so divided, right? It was kind of hard to tell like who was who necessarily, which is why I'm gonna rewatch the game and look into that a little bit more. But yeah, I mean, the offensive line, they got good. I didn't see any specific players really stand out too much, but they got good push on the run. They created holes. They protected the quarterback to an extent. I mean, sometimes Warren was under pressure, but I mean, I think fairly well. I know Andrew Gentry did give up some pressure, though. I know that. So, that's actually one of the concerns. And then some of the guys didn't even play. Like Miles Hinton didn't play. Preby didn't play.
Okay.
Did Crippen play, John? Do you remember?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, Crippen played.
Yeah.
All right. And then the other thing that just stood out to me, because when I did try to go around the stadium and I sat in different places, just how tall DJ Waller is. And I'm like, wait, why is that guy lining up as a, DB? And then all of a sudden okay, that's DJ Waller. So
yeah,
I think he's 6'3", right? He looked really tall. So anyway.
Yeah, he is 6'3", and originally when we got him, they thought he was going to be a dime backer, like playing that safety box role. And but he looked impressive today. He might be the leader for CB2 right now.
Yeah. That'll be interesting.
Real quick, just to touch on O-line, I don't want us to skip past that because you asked a question about O-line, and one thing that I did notice was that the starter Miles Hinton, right? He only played like a couple of plays and then he was out. So despite the fact that they had no returning starters on either Mays team or blue team, they did I thought they did pretty well because you have to gel. It's a lot harder to gel as a cohesive unit when you're split up like that and you're picking. They're picking the strongest they can. Blue is picking the strongest they can. So the fact that they held up, I'd say pretty well. It can only be a good omen for this season. So I would say that for O-line first. But then from cornerback, I think Waller he's really making a case for himself as that CB2 for sure.
Yeah, it's too bad he had the INT and then a fumble right after. That was a little frustrating there, but on the same play. But I did meet Dennis Fithian, so that was kind of cool. A little crossover. He gave me this cheat sheet of the whole roster, maize and blue. So I'm going to kind of keep that. Also brought the GoPro. I did some time lapse stuff, which is very hard to do if there aren't rows that are empty. So hopefully I'll be able to kind of share some of that on Tuesday night if that works out for everyone.
That's cool.
All right, that's all I had. Unless had any other questions?
No, well, definitely we want to hear your perspective more on Tuesday night, though, for sure.
Sounds what would you say the environment was like, though, Ferris? Like, would you say, would you say there was energy? Would you what would you say the feel was, the vibe of this?
Yeah. So it wasn't like it's third down. We're gonna, and then how do you decide? Do I need to be loud or do I need to be quiet? Right. So it was very much like a spring training game in baseball. But the one thing about spring training games in baseball is that everybody seems to be happy. They're just out there, whatever. They're just enjoying it. The ability to really kind of move around the stadium was great for me. I love standing room in baseball. That's something that everybody thinks about. Who has the best seat in baseball, whatever. I like to kind of walk around. So in a very similar situation here, you can't do that in regular games. The idea of sitting at the 50-yard line for 15 minutes, then going to the end zone, then all that kind of stuff. So I was able to do that. The footage I did capture a touchdown and a couple other plays, whatever. So I got some good footage. I think that'll be interesting. But yeah, the crowd wasn't loud, but they were really happy to be there. That's how I would put it. There was tailgating outside. They had the $40 parking right across the street, but I only saw like 5 cars in that vacant lot. And then I was about a half mile, I think it was like 0.6 miles away. I just parked right on the street. And as soon as I parked on the street, I figured, okay, I don't think there's going to be 80,000 people here. It's going to be like 40. So, so anyway.
That's cool.
Ferris, thank you for being here. Everyone, check out Ferris's videos right here. Smash the numbers. What little teases can you give us for future videos?
Yeah. So I think the next push for me is to really look through. Is there really going to be 15 players that are going to be drafted next week in Detroit? I am going to try to go to the draft if I can. And also on offense, there are a projected 11 players on offense that could be drafted. And just a reminder, there are only 11 that play on a side in football. So if 11 players get drafted on offense alone, that'll be crazy. But a lot of these picks are kind of later round picks. So it'll be very interesting to kind of see what happens with respect to that. So I'm going to do a kind of a draft preview and then kind of a review of the spring game as well.
Sounds good.
Good stuff. Thank you, Ferris. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Yep,
Thanks, Ferris. Go Blue.
Go Blue.
Got our next caller coming in. Adam's on the line. Adam, what's going on
Hey,
today?
Adam.
Hey, Mark, how you guys doing?
Doing just fine. How are you?
All right, thanks for taking my call. I'll be really brief. First of all, Michigan deserved the national title last year. They ran the table. They were an incredibly physical team, and they were a true team. Okay, and I'm not a Michigan fan, but what's true is true. They deserved it.
Yeah, you can't play everyone in the country. It's not
Right.
baseball. You just
And I mean Jesse Minter.
We could question every national championship.
Yeah, I agree. And what Jesse Minter did with that defense was just unbelievable. What I would say is this, though, and we've talked about this before. If I was picking the Final Four, I would have had Michigan, Georgia, Texas, and Alabama. And I would have rather seen a national championship game between Michigan and Georgia, and I would have left Washington out. I know they were 14-0, but I didn't think they had the defense that was going to be able to stop any of those teams. And to their credit, they did beat Texas, but Texas played a really poor game. So, I mean, that's true. But I do think that if it was Georgia, Alabama, Texas, and Michigan, we would have had the 4 best teams, and that would have made for a better national championship, just like if Alabama had gotten in the year before instead of TCU. So I think going forward, I hope the committee really focuses on, less on just record per se and more on, who really is the 4 best teams, because a Georgia-Michigan national championship would have been a darn good one.
There was enough outcry about FSU not getting in. Can you imagine if they had left out FSU and Washington, both undefeated? I think there might have been enormous outcry over that. But I do agree with you in theory. In a different universe, I would love to see those 4 match up. I would have loved to play Georgia. 100%.
I agree with you. I think there would have been a huge outcry. Absolutely. But you know what? At the end of the day, they've got to have the courage to do the right thing. If Georgia played Washington, I don't really think it would be that close. But I do get your point that, the practicality of it is really tough to do.
I can argue that Ohio State had a better resume than Georgia. Why shouldn't Ohio State been there?
What's the basis for that statement?
Okay. Georgia's loss was to Alabama. If you watched that game, they were consistently down by 2 scores on a neutral surface, actually in Atlanta, playing a team with 1 loss that lost by 2 scores to Texas. Ohio State was playing the consensus #1 team in the country on the road and were sitting 35 yards away from the goal line when the game ended of a one-score game. And they also had better we could
Mark,
argue the win past then.
Then I'll compromise with you, Mark. Instead of Georgia, put Ohio State in and leave out Washington. Then we have a great national title game with Michigan again against Ohio State. I mean, is Ohio State better than Washington? Yes. So you have a great point, but your point doesn't justify keeping Washington in. It only justifies keeping Georgia out.
And I'm not saying Ohio State was better than Georgia. I'm saying that it could be argued. Like, people don't understand this about me. Like, if we were sitting here in another conversation and somebody said Ohio State should be in the playoff over Georgia, and they made up the same configuration, I'd say, well, I could argue that Georgia should be in over Ohio. This is what I do. So anyway, I'm just saying that there's an argument for Ohio State over Georgia.
Right, I agree with you, but I don't think there's any argument for Ohio State. For Washington over Ohio State or over Georgia. So if you want to pick Ohio State, I'm good with that. My problem was Washington.
You were focused on selecting the best teams.
Yeah. But guys, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. And great show.
Yeah,
Thanks,
for calling.
Thanks, Adam.
Have a great day.
Yep. I mean, I think he makes a good point, though. Like, that's why the 12-team playoff is going to be, very valuable in that essence, because then you get the most deserving and you get the teams who earn it, right? So it's going to be, I think, a good dynamic.
Yeah, the committee has no pressure on them anymore. Very little pressure.
Right.
It's they're not selecting between 4 and 5. They're selecting 11 teams basically, and then the group of 5 selection. They're going to be determining whether Arizona, who lost the Big 12 championship game, and the 5th team in the Big 10, or we've laid it all out here over the playoff years, and there's a log jam most years. There's an interesting log jam if that playoff committee's rankings hold, and they would have. Now, I do believe that they would have approached it differently some years, because the way things were for 10 years, after you select the top 4 and everybody's looking at 5 and 6, only nerds like me care. Oh, well, they shouldn't be 11. They should be 9 and whatever. It doesn't matter. But now the politics would play in a little bit differently. But if you just look at their rankings over the 10-year period of the 14 playoff, there are some serious log jams that they're going to have to whittle through, where there's like 7 teams that are all 9-3, 10-3, and they're only going to have 2 spots. And they're all legitimate teams that have similar resumes.
Yeah. And now we're going to 14.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because obviously we know that there's a group of 5 team that's getting in. So it's going to be about that last power. There's always going to be a debate, but it's not going to be nearly as heated as this past year with FSU versus Alabama. Whereas, if you're picking between, like you said, Arizona or Wisconsin, for example, it's a little bit less of a dynamic. That's what it's going to be. So it's going to be a little bit less controversial, because in last year, if it had been the 12 team, FSU would have gotten a chance to show what they could do with a backup quarterback. In playoff, in a real playoff game, and play all their starters and see where the chips fall.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's less controversy when people are just thinking, okay, what's fair and what's not fair? They're being left out, but do we really consider any of these teams legitimate national championship contenders? No, we don't.
Well, see, that's what's going to be interesting, though, Mark. Like, that's what I want to see. I agree that 8 times out of 10, 9 times out of 10, you're not going to see that. But do I think there will be an upset at some point? I do. You see it sometimes on Saturday. There's going to be a team that doesn't show up to play because they think they got it. And I think we're going to see some very interesting outcomes. I'm excited for the 12 team. I'm very for it. I know some people want it to remain at 4 or maybe only do 16 playoff. But I think the 12 team is going to be a lot of fun. Especially with home field advantage, like, oh my God, dude, it's gonna amplify college football. I mean, when you get these home crowds in December and January, like, Jesus, imagine Miami coming up here in end of December in a blizzard. Like, that's what we're talking about, man.
Yeah.
Look out.
The other thing that the committee's going to have to contend with are conference championship games in this way. And again, we've gone through and posted videos where we went through the 10 years of the playoffs to transform that into the 12 and 14 team model. And they have an issue where, do you penalize a team that's 10-2 for losing a conference championship game? Because there are tons of it happens every year where a team would have been inside the 12 at 10-2, lost a conference championship game, got dropped to 15 or 16 in the country. So what are you going to do with them in the future? Are you going to penalize that team? Or are you going to credit them for playing close against the conference champion or getting blown out? Okay, you're gone.
Wouldn't there really be only two teams who would, like, for example, a Notre Dame and a group of 5 team? Other than that, wouldn't a conference loss still be higher than like maybe a third place Penn State or something? Like, wouldn't you think? Like, wouldn't you think, like, say for the Big Ten, you have Michigan, Oregon, Ohio State, right? And say Ohio State's third, just for fun, because it's a Michigan channel. And you have Notre Dame in a group of 5. I mean, wouldn't Oregon still get the benefit over Ohio State? Wouldn't you think?
So they're second place in the Big Ten, and Ohio State's third.
Right. But Oregon lost in the championship game to Michigan.
What I'm saying is that there are instances almost every year during the playoff era of the 4 teams that if you take those rankings and you slot them into a 12 or 14 team playoff, that there are teams that were 10-2 when they entered a conference championship game and they were safely in the top 12. They lost the conference championship game and the committee dropped them outside the top 12 or 14. So are they going to continue to do that and say, Louisville, you were number 9 in the country when you were playing Florida State at 10-2, but you lost and we dropped you to 15?
Yeah, I don't think so.
We
I
just
don't.
penalized you.
That kind of, it still fits my scenario I played out. I don't think Oregon should drop behind another program for losing. Because you play an extra game. That game shouldn't even be.
That's.
I guess we'll have something to debate. Next year.
In 2022, and of course, I'm trying to, streamline these rankings because they're not quite exact as they would be, because conference champions automatically go and get the first 4 seeds and all of that. But I'm looking at Alabama 10-2, Tennessee 10-2, Clemson 11-2, Utah 10-3, Kansas State 10-3, USC 11-2, Penn State 10-2, Washington 10-2. All those teams are logjam, and only like 5 of those 8 can make it. So they have to leave out, and they virtually all have the same record. They're going to face this every year. They're going to have 4 spots and 9 teams. That's what I'm coming across every year. 3 or 4 spots and left, because once you hit 10-2 or 10-3 with a conference championship game loss, and they're going to have 7 teams to try to fit in 3 or 4 spots. And they're going to have to make difficult decisions.
You don't think that shouldn't some head-to-heads, won't some of these teams cross over, though? Wouldn't you think some of them
will? More so now that they're squeezed into 4 conferences rather than 5. Yeah, there's going to be more of that.
Yeah. No, that's what makes it fun, man. This is going to be it's going to be interesting. And not only that, they're going to go to a 16-team playoff. I mean, that's coming.
Yeah. We're going to get closer and closer to basketball.
I'll tell you what, it better not get past 16. I'm going to be.
I hope not. They're different sports.
What's
And
your thoughts on?
it's much more of a physical load when you play football, for sure.
Yeah, well, I mean, what's your thoughts on the idea of removing conference championships?
Well, I like John is starting to allude to here. I hate to bring this up, but I already have a bunch of times. Think about being a non-conference champion right now, going into the playoffs, being where Penn State is typically projected, going into the playoffs, and you're the 9 seed, and you've got to win 4 games to win a national championship. Are we going to hit a point where a player is going to say, 4 games? I'm opting out.
No.
4 games. Because the thought is, I got to play 4 games. And if we don't play 4 games, then why did I play anyway? If we win a game and then we lose the second round, I just played 2 games for nothing. So I either have to play 4 games or it doesn't matter. So I'm not putting 17 games on my body.
For 5 versus 12, you might see it. Like for one of the matchups that's like one of these teams going up against one of these teams round 1, you might see somebody opt out. I don't think as you get further in the process, like when you get to the final 8, the final 4, I don't think you're going to see that.
So I don't think you'll see it because what a characteristic red flag that'd be for NFL teams. I mean, there's no way. NFL teams would look at, okay, your team's in the playoffs and you're going to sit out. Like, that's a red flag, man. That'll get you dropped. Unless you're like you got to be like elite. You got to like have like already won a Heisman or 2. Like, you'd have to be
Caleb Marvin Harrison Jr. types.
You'd have to be extremely unique. And then if you did that, could you imagine if a Caleb Williams sat out? I can't see it, man. I don't think we'll see that day. I don't think we'll see that day. Not in the playoffs. Because, like, obviously kids sit out in the bowl games because they don't mean anything, right? You don't want to destroy your draft stock. But if you literally sit out, I mean, now, could we possibly maybe see, like, oh, my hamstring hurts, so I can't play? I mean, I guess that's more realistic. I guess it'd be more disguised than anything, but I don't know, man. I'll tell you what, if we do start seeing that, that'd be terrible. That'd be terrible.
We can't stretch this playoff much more.
Well, I think they're gonna. What is it now? So was it 15 games, right? So I think it'll get to 17, just like the NFL. I think you'll see that. Look at the money
for a non-champion to. Okay, so I think the original question was about conference championship games. So what I was getting to is the elimination of conference championship games to lessen the load going into the playoff. Okay. However, the larger these conferences are, the more you logistically need a conference championship game to determine who won the conference. You could have 2 teams win the conference and both be undefeated and they never played. So how do you decide that? And there are all sorts of different configurations. One team's the clear number 1, and you got a 4-way tie for second place.
Well, conference championships, as long as that one of the top 4 spots is an auto bid from winning a conference, then conference championships are still going to be a thing. Now, if that ever stops, if that ever just becomes it's the 16 bet, and we have to just choose them all, then that may change that. But as long as they're auto bids, because I think they still are, then they're still going to be needed.
Yeah,
to determine those spots.
Tom, thank you so much for the super chat contribution. Appreciate you. Got to get the backyard mowed before the hockey tournament starts. Have a great day. John, you can fill in from there.
Go Blue 24. Okay. We got another one. Champs look good. Go Blue. Thank you, Rufus. Yeah, they do.
Very promising.
We had a couple of comments on this. This is one of my new pieces of art there from last year's season with JJ McCarthy and Jim Harbaugh. Helen Hines Art created it, so they do some great work. And I believe they actually had JJ McCarthy sign a couple of the of the actual paintings themselves. So JJ, he really liked it. Apparently, that's what he said.
Nick is trying to make his way into the chat, into the conversation here. His device not connected, but he's trying. We'll remind everyone in the meantime, Tuesdays with these two, 8 p.m. Eastern time right here. We've got a Big Ten live show at 7 o'clock Eastern on Fridays with me over on the national channel. And if you want to come troll our Buckeyes writers on Wednesdays at 11 a.m. Eastern time, you can do that on the Ohio State channel. Nick, unfortunately, it's not coming through, buddy.
Moose is reminding us to click the Amazon link. Thank you for that. And Moose is always here every week for the Michigan show and all the time. And he's reminding everybody to hit the Amazon link. Just takes a second and it helps support the Voice of College Football Network. I just did it. I was getting a Nintendo Switch and a bunch of accessories and games and stuff. And I used the Voice of College Football Amazon link. If I could do that, you could do it too if you're just going to be doing it anyway, if you're already going to be on Amazon.
I appreciate that, John. And you may have heard me say the other day that I was shopping on Amazon and I forgot to use the Amazon link. And I was in the middle. I had already filled my cart. I was ready to check out, put in my card number, all of it. And I thought, I didn't use the Amazon link. How can I look these people in the eye and ask them to use the Amazon link? I'm not using the Amazon link, number one. Number two, I'm spending like $250. I'll probably get 6 or 7 back from this. So I immediately went to the Amazon link. Everything was saved. I thought I was going to have to refind everything, load the card again. No, so that shows you how transparent, everyone, the Amazon link is. I was on a completely different link. I went to the Amazon link. It saved everything in my cart. Still saw that, boom, it's Mark. Completely transparent. Now we've got Nick here. Nick, what's going on today? Let's get you reconfigured. There we go.
How's it going? Can you guys hear me?
It's going well. How you doing?
Hey, Nick.
Pretty good. Excellent spring game. I don't know what you guys are talking about cold weather, man. Not that cold. Not that cold.
No. It's like spring, springtime.
Hey, I had a couple quick things. What did you guys think of Alex Orji's footwork? I know he settled down a little bit, but he still looked slightly inconsistent at times.
Yeah, he's got some happy feet going on. There was some, I would say there was some plays where it looked like they were more, they were more grounded. But there were some plays where I guess potentially if he's not seeing his first read, that's why I want to rewatch this game because I'm going to look into that. I felt like when he wasn't seeing his first read, his feet started getting happy. When he saw his first read, his feet were in good placement. He was able to get the ball off. So, that's just more reps for him. I was still encouraged with everything. I think he went 13 for 18 on the day. I mean, if he could do that in a game, we're gonna have a lot of wins next season.
Yeah, I like Davis Warren a lot too. Man, he looks little to me. I looked up how tall he is. It says he's 6'2". He does not look nearly that big to me. There's a picture. I think it was before the Nebraska game with or maybe it wasn't the Nebraska game, but it was with JJ standing right next to Davis in the tunnel before they were about ready to run out. And Davis looks tiny. And JJ is only supposed to be 6'3". So I don't know. Davis Warren's size kind of concerns me a little bit. If he gets hit, we'll see. But, I mean, like I said earlier, I think pretty much everyone knows this, at least Michigan fans do. If he wouldn't have had his previous issues with cancer, pretty sure he would have been a pretty high 4-star quarterback prospect. So I don't think it's that surprising that he's showing off his arm strength a little bit.
Yeah, so I agree. I agree with that. I think, but see, that's the thing is like he came back from that, right? So to come back from that and still get to this level of player, that's why it would be, if he can win this battle, man. I mean, geez, what a journey for him. But I think, like I said this earlier in the show, I think the fact that we have two quarterbacks whoever wins the battle we're going to be in a good position. I feel pretty confident about that. I was very concerned prior to the spring game, but today showed me that both guys can probably give us a good fighting chance this season.
Yeah, and when, just to follow up on that, when you put somebody in for the 3 toughest games of your season, Ohio State, Alabama, Washington, you put Alex Orji in the game. Not against Southern Wichita State. You put Alex Orji in the game and not even when Michigan was up by a lot. In some cases, when Michigan was in a 3-point battle,
Right.
you're putting Alex Orji in for a series. I think that reflected what they thought already of Alex Orji last year. So come into this year, yeah, Davis Warren's made up a ton of ground, and I've already said Davis Warren looked like the best quarterback today. I've said that, right? But it's a spring game, and Alex Orji, I still say, has the higher ceiling. If he can get, like TJ said, if he can get 13 for 18, if he can get Cade McNamara level completion percentage, and then add on his running ability, for those of you who missed the beginning of the show, I say you got to make him the QB1. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. And the other thing too, there seems to be, I don't know if it's because people just have really short attention spans or they want gratification right now, but like quarterbacks can get better throughout the actual season. We see it all the time. I'm not objective on very many things Ohio State, but I was pretty objective with CJ Stroud. His first game against Minnesota put up pretty good stats. And people were clamoring, a lot of Ohio States were clamoring for him to get benched, and he improved tremendously throughout the year. So as much as I like Davis Warren, I agree Alex Orji has the higher upside, and if it's close, I think you got to go with Orji, because if he can continue to develop, especially under Kirk Campbell, I think he's an excellent offensive coordinator, or he will be an excellent OC, but as a QB developer under his watch, I'm very comfortable with that. So just seeing what he could possibly be, because you just can't replicate game reps. So if it's even close, I would go with Orji. Whether or not that means, I don't know what that means eventually for Davis Warren, but does Davis Warren, is this his last year of eligibility?
Let me look.
Possibly. Definitely Tuttle. That's definitely Tuttle's last year, because he's going for Social Security after this.
Tuttle's
So he's a senior. Davis Warren's a senior. I don't know if he gets any COVID eligibility. That might be done after this season or last season. So he's a senior for sure. He might have got a red shirt. So he might have another year.
Well, it would also really make me comfortable if, I know Marlon Klein looked good, Colson Loveland, we know what he is, stud. And they got a bunch of other good tight ends that are going to come up, younger ones. But I still would be a lot more comfortable with Orji as the starter if they can go out and hit the portal for a bigger just jump ball possession wide receiver for deep routes.
Yes.
Because they just don't have that right now. As much as I like Tyler Morris, I think he's going to be wide receiver 1. But and he's pretty versatile. But yeah, they just don't have the size right now. I don't know if they're looking at any wide receivers in the transfer portal. I think there was one guy, Notre Dame. Was it a Notre Dame guy? Or I don't know.
So Keandre Lambert-Smith out of Penn State, there's some smoke there. And then the kid who just entered the transfer portal from Arizona State. There's some contact. I can't remember his name right now, but he's a pretty good wide receiver. There is some contact right now between the two, but we'll see if that transpires, because teams reach out all the time. It doesn't mean it's going to work. So what I do know about Michigan's NIL in that regard, they are willing to play ball. They just don't want to be the highest bidder for anybody. So they're looking for a player who will get his worth, but isn't looking to strike the highest deal for Michigan. So, that's coming from where we were previously. This is leaps and bounds ahead of where we were last year. So
and it sounds
we can go on.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're fine. Go on.
Oh, I was just going to say, it sounds like I heard that they're trying to make another push with NIL. like just recently. They're trying to do some additional things as well.
Yeah, so this offseason, they're going to do a bunch of tours, kind of like what Harbaugh did last year, where they go to different cities to raise more funds because the program's doing good. It's not at the status of an Ohio State in terms of even funds, let alone approach. I'm not even talking about strategic approach. I'm simply talking about total bankroll. We're not at Ohio State's level. We're not at Miami's, obviously, or at Texas A&M. I mean, obviously, these are the prime elite NIL schools, but we do want to at least have a stronger bankroll because what we're seeing is the depth of the team still doesn't have a team-based salary, which could be detrimental this portal season. There's some rumors that depth could be leaving. We'll see. I don't want to go down that road at this moment, but yeah, the NIL should be improving and there should be more money this summer, but we'll see. It's all hearsay until it happens.
I feel like the whole not having a team salary, I think I can't imagine that going on for very much longer. But if I was Michigan, I don't know, they don't want to do pay for play for like high school recruits, but it's like,
Right.
I don't know why they wouldn't be promoting this all over the place. I mean, Jaden Davis on early April, he signed an NIL deal right away with Brighton
Right.
Forest. So
Yeah.
like that's something you could really throw out to high school recruits, and he hasn't even seen the field. So
Right. So they did promote it though. Champions Circle promoted it, which is something we didn't really see last year. So there is some promotion of it. I think, but see, here's the thing though. So that's an external NIL deal. That's not I don't want to say under the table, even though that is the right term, but essentially we got to get to the point where when it comes to high school recruits, where the collective is negotiating agreements for players that come in, whether it's $60,000 a year or what have it. We're not there. So from my understanding, player retainment, we're good. It's healthy. And we are now entering portal negotiation with players, which we weren't doing before. So that's good. The next step is going to be recruiting. And hopefully it happens. I'm hoping it happens this year. But what I do know is there's some depth. So I'll just let in some intel here. There's some depth players who have requested some NIL, but the collective wants to use the funds they have elsewhere and in portal pursuits. So we'll see what that means. I don't know what that means. I know what it sounds like, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
okay. Well, I guess that's good news. It seems like they're kind of moving in the right direction. But I still like one interesting thing, and I don't want to get into this too much because I'm sure Mark will this is a more broad general topic. I'm sure you guys could address this more in depth later on, but everyone keeps talking about the death of the NCAA, and I still haven't heard, and it might not be easy to pinpoint, but what would actually be the proverbial nail in the coffin for the NCAA? Because I was thinking it would look something like, and I'm not a lawyer, but with the schools, and I don't know how the TV networks and the conferences would become involved, but I don't know why just a couple big time schools wouldn't just say, we're just going to pay the players directly this upcoming year. And if the NCAA, if you want to try to stop us, we'll take you to court. And if you get enough schools or enough big name programs to do that, I don't know. Again, I don't know the legal ramifications behind that, but I don't know why some schools just wouldn't, because the NCAA would lose.
So there are some. So just recently, I think it was West Virginia. Was it West Virginia? It wasn't. There was a state just recently. Do you know about this, Mark? A week ago, where
West
they,
Virginia.
yeah. So it was West Virginia where they did a state law where it is legal for West Virginia to pay its athletes. Now Michigan actually has that in its law books, but no university in the state of Michigan has taken that leap because it's an unknown area. No school has challenged the NCAA in this area yet. I mean, what we really need is a Tennessee or a Texas A&M to do it. They've threatened the NCAA, saying that they will take them to court. And you are seeing right now Tennessee take them to court on other NIL topics, but not necessarily paying players directly from the school. But that's what it'll to kill the NCAA. I think the NCAA will stick around for like non-revenue sports. Like I don't think it's going to go anywhere for that. But I do think you will see collective bargaining agreements come into place, unionization, and then eventually a super conference of some type, and that will break away from the NCAA. It will lose its control over college football at some point. I do believe that.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, I'm just kind of wondering what that final push will be. The reason why I suggested that specifically is schools just saying we're just immediately going to start paying the players this upcoming year is maybe that would put some more pressure on the courts because that would be a high profile case. So maybe that would just move faster, but I don't know. That's obviously a huge risk for some schools to do. But yeah, I think you're right. I think it'll look like something like that. But and then just the last couple of points, I thought as little as we saw of Jaden Davis, he's obviously young, but I think it's very clear he's future QB1. Looks like a very talented kid. And then I also thought the spring game today, you guys might have touched on this before, but I thought more than anything, you can only take away so much from a spring game, but what surprised me the most is just, I think it was a testament to Michigan's development and more guys, just kind of being in the right spot, looking physically ready to play today, but also just making plays. I mean, there were guys just flying around. And it shows that they can identify talent. And I think they're just going to kind of reload. Now they're going to have to do a better job eventually with NIL so they can get those couple of 5-stars like Will Johnson, Dono and stuff. But I mean, even guys like Omeric Kumba, he looked like a freak, number 90 physically. He was making some plays. I'm interested to see if Ike Iwanu turns into anything. And obviously TJ Guy, he was a guy who didn't see a lot of playing time last year, but when you saw him play, I mean, he stood out. So it'll be interesting. I think they're going to definitely be competitive. So.
Well, real quick on NIL. So we remember that very recently, like a month and a half ago, Michigan had announced that in partnership with the Altia Sports partners who they were working with, they're bringing in an executive general manager. And so they did hire Sean McGee as the general manager and from the Bears. And one of his key responsibilities is to manage the NIL program at the university. But they didn't stop there. They also were hiring a director of business development. So that's another position that they created. So Michigan's still, I'd say, a year or two behind schools like a Texas A&M, even Ohio State.
That's 10 years. Behind A&M, that's 10 years. But yeah, go on.
Yeah, 10 years behind A&M. But you know what I mean? Essentially, it's still going to take some time after these people are, now that Sean has been hired, right? It's still going to take some time to develop and get it to the point where it's at the level of some of these others.
Do you guys... Sorry, go ahead. I
was going to say, also, Michigan's linked up with Learfield and Altia,
Yep.
I think they're called. And Altia just struck a deal with Memphis. I don't know if you guys saw this with
I did.
with FedEx, who's going to commit $25 million over the next 5 years. I mean, if Michigan can start getting deals like that in place, that's the future of NIL, right? Until schools are able to pay players directly, that's the future of NIL right there. So hopefully Michigan can get something with Ford Motor Company or Little Caesars or something, we'll see.
It seems like Ward, his actions recently is coming around a little bit. I hate the phrase transformational, not transactional. I mean, I get it. It just sounds kind of bad in today's landscape, but do you guys think, I want all of your opinions on this. Is Ward Manuel the type of guy, the type of athletic director that would physically insert himself into preventing scholarship athletes from getting paid by the athletic department?
So Ward has in the very first year of NIL Michigan, he roadblocked collectives being implemented as school approved. He wouldn't do it until Santa Ono got involved. So Santa Ono got involved, and he essentially I'm gonna get some flack here because I know there's some Ward supporters, but essentially Santaono strong-armed Ward Manuel in the sense of, all right, we got to get this figured out. We got to start approving collectives because we didn't have one. We didn't have one for the first 2 years, actually. It was 2 years. So then there was that. Then Ward was very reluctant to support pay-for-play for student athletes. And I'm sure you've heard about this because you seem like someone who's followed the program. Juwan Howard got into an argument last May behind closed doors with Ward Manuel about NIL, how they need better NIL support so he can recruit better athletes. And we just saw the piece by Juwan Howard, about a month ago, where he talked about NIL being a major factor into him not being successful. Now, whether we agree with that, that's a different story because Juwan was not a very good coach. But the point being is, not only is it Ward Manuel, but the regents at the University of Michigan have been very archaic in their philosophy on what a student athlete should be able to make. They're pro NIL, but they're not pro university supporting the pipeline for their NIL, whether it be collective or university. So I do think, and I think after January, when there was the risk of losing players being poached like a Kenneth Grant and Mason Graham, and we just saw Keon Saab, although that's a little bit different of a story because he wanted playing time. But you saw Ward start to develop, but then when Juwan got fired, his exit interview was NIL being the reason they didn't succeed, and that's why he got fired. And then they bring in Dusty May, right? And I don't know if you're following the basketball program or not, but right now they're on a bit of a swing of commitments. And Dusty May is doing overtime and reaching out to donors and giving donors access to the program. And I think Ward Manuel he is seeing, along with the regents, that the importance of getting a competitive NIL to be successful at the University of Michigan. And hopefully it continues to grow because it seems to be far more important now than it was 2 years ago. So I do think Ward I think he's evolving. Long story. I think he's evolving. We'll see though. There's still.
Yeah, he better. Otherwise he's going to be gone. But I would be surprised. I mean, I don't know what you can do about the regents.
Vote them out.
Much.
You can vote
them out.
Oh, you can vote them out? Okay. Well, yeah, maybe there's. I'm sure not all the regents are anti-NIL.
They're not.
I've heard the same thing from Sam Webb that maybe not Sam Webb, some other people that some of the regents are. But it would really shock me if that conversation hasn't happened between Santaono and Ward Manuel. I would want to know specifically if your athletic director would do anything to prevent players from getting paid from the athletic department, because they make so much money. And to ask fans to donate, I mean, I get it, but I mean, Michigan's athletic department is probably one of the most prestigious in the entire country. So I don't know, that it seems like it's going to have to end up there, at least partially, at some point. And if Ward's not on board with that, then he's got to go. So
he's had to go for a while, in my opinion. But
I'm fine with evolving and whatnot, but I would hope Santaono specifically asked him that exact question and has an answer to that by this point.
As it stands, universities cannot pay players NIL. So whether Ward is pro that or anti that, he's protected by NCAA rules and regulations from the university paying it. I'm on the same side as John, where I've been very anti-Ward, but I will say, like you, Nick, if he evolves, then hey man, if you evolve and you show that you can become a modernized athletic director, then yeah, no problem. Then obviously you're the man for the job. But if you cannot evolve, if you do not adapt, then you die. And that's just where we are in college athletics right now. And to your point on the athletic department, they are, I believe, projected to bring in $225 million in revenue next season. So,
as stated this week in a new rule, and this is straight from the NCAA.org, under the new rule, which was introduced by the council in January, member schools would be able to increase NIL related support for student athletes, including identifying NIL opportunities and facilitating deals between student athletes and third parties.
Collectives. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
My general thought, I don't know enough about Ward Manuel. My perception of him basically comes through sources online and probably Steve Dace more than anyone. My thought about Ward Manuel would be much like other people in his position. I don't know how old he is, but he's been an administrator for quite some time, and he's an old school type guy, and I can understand them being unrelenting, at least at the outset, to say, okay, NIL is officially in play July 1st, 2021, I think was the date. And let's see how it goes. Let's see if we can manage this. Let's see how out of control it gets. The NCAA is not doing anything about it. So we're only so much empowered to do anything. We can only control what we can control. But the time, doesn't stop for anyone, and progress, whatever you think about it, is not stopping for anyone. So at this point, I can respect trying to keep it legitimate, trying to keep the role of a student athlete to a certain extent, but you're either going to get out of the way or get steamrolled, or you're going to evolve and adapt and work with it and within it, especially if you're at a place like Michigan where you're expected to excel at the highest level.
Yeah, and that's where we are right now. That's the crossroads for the program.
Yeah, good stuff. How much? Oh yeah, one quick last question. How much longer do you think this transfer portal nonsense is gonna go on before someone actually does something about it? And I'm specifically talking about transferring to a school, accepting an NIL deal, and transferring out before you even play.
That was also addressed this week.
Yeah, they actually made it unlimited transfer, right? So now they're unlimited with so they're automatically eligible regardless. So there's going to be no limitations on eligibility for any transfer. Now, for example, what you're referring to is like a Caden Proctor who went to Alabama, then went to Iowa, then back to Alabama. So the NIL, from my understanding, Mark, you can correct me if I'm wrong, the NIL deal that he had at Iowa, he didn't get any of the money except one outside private, which is completely legal, agreement he had with an outside legitimate NIL deal that he did receive that money, but outside of that, he didn't get anything from the school's collective. So he's back at Alabama, and it's Alabama, so they're gonna do that stuff. But it's not going anywhere, man. I'm gonna be real with you. The portal is not, in my opinion, I'm starting to think the NCAA is literally sabotaging intentionally, because they're literally making every rule worse. What they do allow and then they don't allow, and everything's very gray. It's very, I don't know. I'm wondering what the motives are.
So this is the first cycle we've seen exactly what TJ just outlined, and it's just not Caden Proctor. He's the most publicized as being a 5-star, and since he screwed his home state school, and he did it for a second time and all of that, so that's given the most attention. But we did transfer portal updates every day live and went through everybody entering the transfer portal, and I would say 20 or 25% of them were so-and-so wide receiver. For example, Texas A&M wide receiver leaves, goes to the transfer portal immediately after the season in December, transfers to Kentucky, doesn't play for Kentucky. He's back in the transfer portal. Yes. That, I agree, needs to be addressed. And I was looking through what had been addressed this week, and I'm not seeing that. I thought it had been, actually. But that I see as, well, what is this player deciding? They are deciding, based on no new information or just having a bad spring practice or some type of situation, because we're not talking about high-end players that are probably getting huge NIL deals somewhere. We're talking about role players. We're talking about, special teams players, backup players that don't like their situation. And basically, I see this as when you transfer somewhere, you're filling out paperwork. You're in effect signing a contract. When you transfer somewhere, you're getting a new scholarship. That's in a sense a contract. And you could say on one hand that they're providing zero value to the school, but I would say that they're providing negative value to the school because they've taken up coaching staff time to pursue them, host them, communicate with them, have taken a visit to the school. They have taken their travel money. They've worn their gear for 4-6 weeks. They've eaten their food on campus. They've been housed. And in the case of a lot of these players, they went through spring practice and they took reps from somebody who's going to be on the team in 2024. So they have actually been a detriment to that program and provided zero value. So that needs to be eliminated.
Yeah, I mean, until we get a CBA, it's not going anywhere. Until it gets unionized and there's a collective bargaining agreement, it's not. I don't see it going anywhere.
What do you think that would look like? Like what? Because I don't think college players can really. I mean, they could. It wouldn't be the same as like pros.
Yeah, it would actually. That's the avenue it would go down. It'd be very similar to a players' union, and they would then. So this is where you have to separate into a new league, right? You'd have, let's say, you have a 65 team or a 50 team super conference, and essentially, what would happen? There'd have to be an agreement with the commissioner of whatever league that is, because you would need a head of the league, and whatever the ruling governing body would be, and then whatever the union president would then agree to certain rules, like maybe they would agree to 2 years at a school without a transfer. If you commit to a school, you have to stay for 2. And then every player would get paid revenue from TV contracts is where this is heading. So it would be very similar to a player, NFL player contracts or player deals that they do now. So I'm sure there's going to be at some point be a revenue split. But here's something I heard about that I think is very true. The universities are not motivated to do that. And I think we can understand why. They would lose a lot of money.
Yep.
That's the problem. You have parties who don't want to do it, even though the game is decaying right now. It's deteriorating in front of us. But the universities don't want to do it. The NCAA is like, oh, Title IX. They don't want to get into that mess because, I mean,
it's going to be an act of Congress or the Supreme Court. I hate to tell you.
Yeah. So it's just going to get messier before it gets better, unfortunately.
Well, I think that's all I got for you guys. Thanks for taking my call. I'm looking forward to this upcoming season. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, thanks, Nick.
Appreciate you, Nick,
Thanks,
for
Nick.
always being around.
All right. We have Keith waiting patiently. Keith, thank you so much for waiting, and we appreciate you being here. What's going on today?
Hey, Mark. I was at the game too. Good show. It was good to see you guys getting there, and we could hear the pads cracking in the stands. It was close to a game as we probably could have gotten.
True.
Yeah. I also want to say that we saw a lot of good things from the quarterbacks, and we saw that they're not in midseason form yet. A lot of passes behind players. Even in Davis Warren's long pass, he underthrew that ball, and the receiver had to make a good move back towards the ball and reached out and made a pretty good catch out of something that could have been easier.
Yep. Yeah, the quarterbacks. Davis Warren. Look, I mean, I was impressed with Davis Warren, and I gave Davis Warren some flack, and he looked very good today. He looked like the best quarterback from a passing perspective. So from that, Alex Orgy definitely felt like he had some jitters the first couple of plays there, till he hit that. It was kind of like the really short yardage throw to Tyler Morris, and then things started to pick up for him a little bit.
Yeah. Also, I want to say about Davis Warren, 2 spring games ago, he was a very clear number 3 on the depth chart. If they didn't have Cade McNamara and McCarthy in front of him, he might have made some noise a couple of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, I just don't think he was ready yet. I think Davis Warren showed a little bit of promise, but I just don't think he was ready to be a QB1 at that point in time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, when you were talking about NIL, I think things are changing at Michigan. Sam Webb's had 2 or 3 5-stars in the last few weeks on his show that are making rounds through the system, and
Right.
I believe Chiron Moore is leading that charge. Also, Dusty May had 2 7-footers in on the same visit a week and a half ago too. So I have a feeling that Michigan NIL is catching up with everybody fast.
Yeah, how about Scottie Pippen Jr.? You hear about that one? Yeah,
Yep.
that was pretty impressive.
Yeah, that was a good recruit. He's a 4-star, but yeah, and being Scottie Pippen's son, probably NIL isn't that important to him.
Right. That's my thoughts as well. I mean, so with basketball NIL, apparently it's not to the level of even Michigan NIL right now, but I do know, and I'm sure you know too if you're following Sam Webb, that Dusty's meeting with donors and he's improving it by the week, maybe even the month. But what I'm seeing with basketball recruiting right now is encouraging me for football because we're not getting the commitments in football right now. But if Dusty's doing what he's doing and he's in on some of these 5-stars, because there are some 5-stars for even basketball that they're in on, I'm encouraged. I'm interested to see what Michigan can do because we haven't had Chiron has still not had a single commit. So until I see the level or the caliber of player we're getting, I'm more or less just in observation mode because I just don't know. What I do know is like I mentioned, retainment's good. We seem to be portal competitive. I don't know about the high school level yet. I'm just simply in observation mode right now.
Yeah, that is a little disturbing. How little commits he's gotten, and it almost seems to me like that he might be trying to follow the Dabo model, because you recruit these high 4-stars out of high school, and then they come here for a couple of years, and then you start recruiting these other 4-stars over them, and every once in a while a 5-star over them, and Chiron might be believing that he's better off to develop the high school talent than Harbaugh was. What do you have to say to that?
I'm not sold that that's his approach. Because Chiron says he wants to be more aggressive with recruiting. Now, the Dabo approach was he didn't like to get into the portal, right? But Dabo was paying players. They do pay for play at Clemson, right? So that's a little bit different of approach than what Michigan's doing. Michigan's taking a little less caliber of a player and trying to build a foundation and develop them through the years. And I don't know because we haven't seen it, right? But I believe Chiron Moore is going to take an approach down the middle. I think he is going to try and find some cornerstone players of a higher caliber, but I think we're also going to find our, players that are ranked 150 to 400 sweet spot, which seems to be our sweet spot. But like you said, we have some higher caliber players like Keontae Winston, the safety out of Virginia, I believe. He was just on campus last weekend, or this past week. So I think until we see results, it's hard to truly say, but I do think he'll be a little more aggressive than Harbaugh.
Yeah, it's just I would like to see at least some portal pickups. I mean, I think besides the one Preeb, I think is his name.
Yeah, and Barnum.
And but I think Preeb might be the only one on Moore's watch. Barnum was
Harbaugh
was under Harbaugh.
Right.
Yeah.
And so was Preeby, but Chiron was coaching the O-line. But yeah, I agree. But the portal just opened on the 16th, so it's only been 4 days. So the word out of Ann Arbor is they're looking for a right tackle, they're looking for wide receivers, defensive tackle depth, linebacker depth, and safety and corner. So we're just gonna have to see. We're trending right now for a defensive tackle out of Kent State, so that's pretty good.
Yeah.
And then Nikhil Green might be coming back to Michigan. So there,
right.
So that's two. That's two. So we'll see. It's just we're in a position where nothing's happened, so we're just speculating right now.
Yep.
Yeah, but in past years, Michigan's got commits right away. Like when we got Henderson and what was the quarter? Drake or whatever is that center. Those guys
Drake
all
Nugent.
commit. Those guys all committed right as the window opened.
Yep.
Right.
So it's very different now. The atmosphere is very different now because we should have had several captain-like type players from the teams joining the Michigan squad. We just haven't seen it with Moore yet.
I agree, but you also have to look at the flip side. Okay, so I'm with you. I want to see more recruiting, and I want to see more transfer portal. Chiron Moore had an enormous task he had to accomplish very, very quickly. Jim Harbaugh decided to go to the Chargers. Whether that was always going to happen, whether that was because of an 11th hour, they just couldn't come to an agreement fast enough, whatever. He's going to the Chargers. He took with him not just one coach. He took with him the defensive coordinator. He took with him Ben Herbert, who many think was basically like the third main coach of the program. Okay, like huge in implementing the culture that they had. The guy that they had picked for D-line coach got a DUI. So there have been basically Chiron Moore had to spend the first, bit of his tenure on building the staff because so few came back from the previous year. Almost the entire defensive staff is new people. So that's definitely part of it. So they hired the general manager, Sean McGee. They have been they've been trying to retain the nutrition head. They've been doing a lot like behind the scenes the last couple months, in addition to trying to continue on the recruiting trail. But imagine if you're talking to recruits and then all of a sudden your primary recruiter gets yanked because of a DUI or decides to go to the NFL. The person that you were most conversing with is gone. So you and your family got to know that person and now they're gone. And you've got to basically start the relationship because it's really person to person in high school recruiting, as so it's not, it's very much like the family meets the primary recruiter, the player meets the primary recruiter, and you have secondary recruiters as well. But there's a lot that goes into it. So I just think, yes, Michigan is behind. Yes, I want to start seeing some commits, but it's quite different from last year when pretty much the entire coaching staff, with one or two minor things, was the same as before. So like they had a lot more to navigate internally this offseason than they've had to navigate in a long time. From a new head coach, obviously, who was with the program. But just imagine, this would have been 10 times worse if possible, if everybody had gone, because if they hadn't picked Chiron Moore, imagine what could have happened then. Then you would have had everybody changing, the whole culture, all the players leaving except a couple. So it could always be worse, but I do want to see movement, Keith, soon. I agree with you there, and hopefully on Tuesday we have some type of positive news to report on recruiting or transfer portal front, but we'll see.
Yeah, and people, I think, have not given Chiron Moore and Mike McDonald and Jesse Minter enough credit for developing the tough front lines that we've had for the last 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And
Ben Herbert.
And Ben, you're absolutely right. Ben Herbert. I should include him in that too. Yes,
absolutely.
And because before 2019 or 2020, Michigan wasn't known for their tough offensive and defensive line play. So I give more credit to those guys, and it'll be interesting to see if Moore is going to be able to maintain that development that he's really been shining in since he's been on the staff and promoted to higher positions. So that'll be good. I think, Mark, you said something. You have felt like you need to say something a couple times ago that people that listened to your show in the past did not know that you were a Ohio State fan. I was turned on to you right after the 2021 Ohio State game. And I didn't know for the first 9 to 12 months of listening to you that you were a Ohio State fan, because you were saying a lot of positive things about Michigan. I was getting other feeds that whenever different feeds in the country start talking good about your team, YouTube has this real good algorithm, because last year after we beat Alabama, I got some Alabama feeds where they were talking really up about Michigan. Yeah. So you were in that feed and after the 21 game mark. And like I say, when you came on, you looked like a purely objective voice of college football. And I did not know, like I say, till 9 or 12 months as we approached the 22 game, that you were a Bucknut at heart.
Well, I will say, Keith, I appreciate that. I wish now, and I can never take it back, but I wish to a certain extent that I would have never revealed who I root for, because I didn't for a long time, but I don't know how many people were watching, but people that were watching had no idea who I rooted for and would make a lot of very funny remarks, because some would think I hated Ohio State. Others would guess all sorts of things. And it was just fun, just kind of monitoring what they thought. And I never revealed it. And then I finally just thought, when people kept asking me, so I finally came out with that. But I was intrigued by watching the responses and the feedback, but that can no longer take place, because now it's only natural that people are going to somewhat filter what I have to say, knowing who I root for. And maybe they come to a different conclusion than what's actually intended sometimes.
Yeah, and I can certainly understand where people would have said you hated Ohio State when you commented on that 21 Ohio State defense, because there wasn't much positive to say back in 21 about the Ohio State defense.
No, there wasn't. A lot of wasted talent is what there was. And especially in 2016, when Ohio State received a playoff berth, and I pounded the table for Penn State and said Penn State should be in the playoff.
Yeah. So, yeah, It was fun to be at the game. I got to sit on the 50-yard line. It was nice. You know, I'm usually in the end zone, so it's nice to sit at the 50-yard line and see the game. And it was fun seeing them. I'd say the defense is not in mid-season form yet either. There were some good pushes by the offensive line and some good runs by running backs. But if you noticed on a lot of the 3rd and 4th and shorts, that defense was in the backfield and they looked like a really good defense again. And it'll be interesting to see against Fresno State how good that defense really is.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, I'm excited though. I mean, out of every defense in the country, when you have Mason Graham coming back and Kenneth Grant, and then you have you saw Hausman do some stuff today, Zeke Berry, some of these other guys who are just like chomping at the bit for their starting opportunity. Waller. So it's I'm more confident than I'd be if we had a complete defense overhaul, and you know, the offense is what worries me a bit. But you know, you got Donovan Edwards, you got 6'5" Colston Loveland, and the O-line seems like it's going to carry through. But yeah, not worried about the defense. Still have questions about the offense.
Yeah, but it looks like we got some real skilled players. The yards after catch on Davis Warren's second touchdown pass. I mean, Davis Warren only got like 10, 15 of those yards on that 45-yarder.
Yep.
Yeah. So the receivers look dynamic. You know, I don't know if we have that stretch guy yet, but those are hard to find if your name's not Ohio State or Washington.
I think Frederick Moore could be the guy. Now, I need to see a lot more. Get it? But I saw the beginnings today. I need to hear more from camp and everything else. And TJ, I know I saw your face. I still think we should go out and get somebody in the portal too, maybe, and have them compete against each other. Let's have them.
That's where I'm at. Get some portal, like, because we don't have a lot of depth, right? You know, Christian Dixon entered the portal just like a week ago, and even though he switched positions with DB, but we gotta add more depth. Size is a problem. Let's say Fred Moore can stretch the field. We don't have a jump ball guy. We don't have a contested catch guy. So I just, you know, like I was going to ask you, Keith, are you more confident or less confident after today's spring game?
I'm more confident. I saw every like last year. I don't see a weakness in Michigan this year, or a great weakness. You know, some groups are weaker than others, but I don't see a major flaw. I don't see any flaws in that. And whoever was talking about Texas being in the playoff, I think if we were looking at the 4 best teams at the end of the year, and I complimented Mark on the show another time, I think the 4 best teams at the end of the year were Michigan, Ohio State, Alabama, and Georgia. And if we went pure off, you know, performance through the year and talent that's on the field, we would have those 4 teams in there, because the Texas pass defense was like 20 or 25th. You know, their run defense was good because they had a strong defensive line, but their pass defense was really subpar for a championship team. So if you went by those metrics, you could say Texas and Washington shouldn't be in the playoff.
I think you're being kind, Keith, with 20 or 25th in the country. I think they were more like 75th.
Yeah, I thought 60.
Oh, was it that low? Okay. Yeah. So, yeah, you're not going to win too many national championships with the 75th ranked pass defense.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, Washington was another example of that. They were ranked in the 70s also. So, Michigan was able to capitalize on that.
Yeah. Yeah. And everybody talks about Oregon having this great defense too. And I think that's a great defense on paper, but in reality, their defense really wasn't much better than Washington's defense because that defense let Washington beat them twice. Now, they were both close games. So it's not like Washington has a way better defense than them. But if you took if I were looking at the two defenses, I'd take Washington over Oregon.
Texas, 116 in pass defense, 49 in pass efficiency defense.
Wow. Yeah.
That's terrible. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully they're that bad next season.
Yeah. But also, did you see that hit on Klein in the third quarter, I think it was?
Yeah, it was to the head.
They just about killed him. They got him from one side and the other. Yeah. Last year's spring game, they got a hit like that on Tuttle in the pocket, if you remember. He was coming out of the pocket and wham, he got hit twice, and he stayed in the game for another play, but then you saw him sitting on the sideline after that, grimacing, because that defense can really hit.
Yeah. Yeah, thankfully he came back and he was all right, though.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's the like I said, we could hear the pads popping. I mean, it was really good. And when you watch the plays again, watch the backfield blocking. Hall and who was the other guy? Mullinex. They were really hitting on rushing guys coming free on rushing, and you could really see them blowing up. Really good blocking for them and really taking full speed rushers on. Right. And we've got some tough blocking running backs this year too.
Yeah. I'm ready for football, man. I'll tell you that. Let's start the season.
Yeah, this has to tide us over for 4 months, unless you watch the UFL, which
it's something.
It's something. Tonight, Michigan Panthers play. So
yeah. Hey, Bates, bro, that's future Lions kicker.
Yeah, he's amazing. 64 yards.
Funny thing was, I didn't have anything on my schedule on that game where Michigan Panthers hit like the 68-yard field goal, and I actually saw that live. But that's the only Michigan Panthers game I've seen all year.
I watched just for him.
Yeah, but honestly, I'd rather listen to you guys than watch Michigan Panthers football.
Oh, thank you, man.
Appreciate it.
We'll take it, Keith.
All
Thank
right.
you for that.
All right.
Appreciate you being here, sir.
All right. It was great talking to you guys.
Have a good day.
Thanks, Keith.
Okay.
Go
bye,
Blue.
guys. Go Blue.
All right. What do you guys think? We've done enough damage?
All right.
Yeah. Well, I did want to point out Jackson. So otherwise known as Double J, is our chief marketer here at the Voice of College Football. So right here, he's asked us all to help Michigan football at the Voice of College Football get to 7,000 subscribers. What are you all doing to beat Ohio State today if you're a Michigan fan? You know what you could do? You could hit the subscribe button and hit the bell to get notified when we get live. And Jackson's reminding y'all right here. So go ahead and do that if you haven't already.
Absolutely. TJ, thanks so much for being here. Everybody follow TJ on Ronan's Sports Talk. We'll bring up the banner. And also, of course, John D'Adamo on X as well. And, of course, these two get together for Michigan Football Talk every Tuesday, live with all of you answering your comments and questions, Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, right here. And if you've joined us We've gone for what, 2.5 hours. If you've joined us at any time in the last 10 minutes, 20 minutes, last hour, catch what you missed. You can go back and you can watch what you missed as well. It immediately posts, and you should be all set to catch the analysis from the top. John, thank you so much for all that you do. TJ, thank you so much as well. And we will see you on Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Actually, I'll be doing more spring football coverage tonight at 8 p.m. on the national channel, so you can join me there. USC in play, Texas A&M, and a host of others. And we will see you then.
All right. See you, boys.
Thanks, everybody.